that's been bedded down in our Pachysandra for 4 days in a row. It's exciting over here.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So luckily I
That's
got
cool. Is
telephotos
Mama
and,
around?
she comes at nighttime. And my mother, my wife said this morning when she was getting ready for school that the mother came and the fawn actually drank from her milk pouch. So
Hi.
hello,
Wow.
hello.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Hello.
Good.
How are you?
Okay, we have a quorum.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Lee. Hi, Anna. How
No,
are
can you hear me?
Yes, we
You
can
can't
hear you.
hear-
Lee.
We hear you, Lee.
Okay, now,
Hi, Lee.
okay, I'm here finally. Sorry.
And how are you, Anna?
Oh, I'm a whole new person.
How's baby?
Wow.
Oh, she's very good.
What's her name?
Sonia.
Nice.
Nice.
Perfect.
Yep. She
Oh,
keeps
con-
us up at night. She keeps us up during the day.
Congratulations.
She
Okay, now's the time.
No
Now's
kidding.
the time to put a stop to
Never
that.
saw that coming.
Yes, but you're still smiling, and that's what matters.
yes, she's amazing. She has a full head of hair. They say it had to do with the more acid reflux you have,
It's a
the more
different
hair the
kind
baby
of
will have.
tired.
So
Oh, great.
Mhm.
That's super. That's
that
why
explains
she's
it.
up. Okay,
so
so who are we waiting on? Oh, so it would just be Kayla. Oh, we're waiting on Tom.
Hmm.
Bob Zedon is not coming, Joe, and Kayla
Oh,
is
wow.
away on vacation.
Okay.
So we do have a quorum and it is after 7, so we can get started and hopefully Tom will join us if you're okay with that.
I'm definitely okay.
All right, I'm gonna get us started then.
Okay, so I want to welcome everybody. Thank you to our members who are here, and thank you to Aaron for getting all of our applicants here for the June 5, 2023 meeting, regular meeting of the Madison Inland Wetlands Agency. We're going to be starting with a show cause application by the town of Madison, followed by a public hearing for the Board of Ed, and then our regular meeting after that. So we will go with a call to order. Now, Aaron, do you call out the names or should I just say who's here?
Yes, you could go ahead and do that.
Okay, so our call to order, Lee Schumacher,
Here.
he's here. Anna Loss,
Sure.
thank you. Martin Brogy,
Present and counted for.
okay. I see John Iannacco, and I'm gonna assume he's not a brand new member.
Correct.
Yes, Johnny
Okay.
and I was our town engineer and director of
Oh,
public
yes.
works. So he'll be
Okay.
working, he'll be here to talk to us for our show cause. I just moved him over.
Perfect. So
Thanks for coming, John.
thank you to our
Thank you.
members for being here. So to anyone who's attending tonight and they're here to hear about two applications, one being the Durham Road application or the Milano property on Fort Path, those two applications are not being discussed tonight. So I'm not sure if anyone's here for that. I just thought I should say that at the beginning. And that just leaves us now to go right to the show cause hearing, item number 1 on the agenda, which is the town of Madison with a project on Horse Pound Road within the town right of way in front of 103 and 107 Horse Pond Road. John, if you'd like to take the lead on the presentation. There was a site walk at this property
Yes.
a few
And-
weeks ago.
I can kind of just briefly, before John walks you through what the damage was and the plan to mitigate that. The reason I can kind of walk you through the reason we've approached it in this fashion, just so you know that because it's not a typical application and we don't typically issue ourselves notices of violation because we are rule followers. Basically, because this area of Horse Pond Road, there is a water course with a culvert under Horse Pond Road, and then outlets into a water course on the other side, on the south side of Horse Pond. There was storm damage, which essentially there was water runoff that washed the embankment into the water course, which created, the underlay of the pipe washed away, causing the pipe to disconnect. And so a lot of sediment ended up in the water course. And now, because the embankment is eroding, it's starting to damage the road. So this had happened over the winter during some storm events. Several storm events actually just kept getting worse, and is at the point where this needs to be repaired immediately. And so the way to go about this, rather than moving forward in a regulatory process with permits and the waiting period of over several months, it is in your regulations under section 4 that no, excuse me, section 6.3, that deposition of materials within a water course is a regulated activity. And so you have the ability to look at this damage as in technically violation of this section of your regulations, and you can order mitigation. So that is the expedited way to get this situation mitigated. And so I issued that formal notice to John, and indicating that the town is required to install any necessary temporary stabilization measures to prevent further erosion, and to develop and submit a mitigation plan to restore the subject area to pre-storm damage conditions. So John has done that. This isn't a back and forth where it's a show cause hearing where you have an opportunity to say that why this order should not remain in effect. But I think the town is in agreement that we are happy to abide by the order and mitigate this damage immediately. So John, you can kind of talk through. I'm happy to, I don't know if you have access to the photos or the plan. I'm happy to screen share it for you if you want. I have it right here.
I don't have, I have them in front of me, but I'm on my phone. I had to run home. So, but if you wanted to do that, then maybe the photographs are the easiest.
I think so
it's the
too.
easiest way to take a look at this. The one looking down the road probably shows it the best, or whatever. They're all show different angles.
So this is the first one.
So, right. So you can see there, and like Aaron said, we just want to get this repaired as quickly as possible. At this point, it's a bit of a road hazard, and we intend to do this with our own forces, with the Public Works Department. We've done work like this before, but I wanted to go to Aaron and make sure that we're following the proper requirements. So Aaron came up with this idea that would help expedite the work. Basically, you can see in that photograph where water runs down the road, and it's probably formed a bit of a windrow along the edge and has gotten concentrated in places, which we can fix that as part of this work, and let it run off as it did, in the past, sort of off as sheet flow, where it comes, it doesn't concentrate in a road. But this was after a bad storm. It started eroding and only got worse in subsequent storms, I think. And so you can see this is right. This is looking at the top of the culvert. Actually, if
you want to do the
able,
other picture?
Yeah, maybe if you can show like the pipe outlet, from down in the embankment looking up.
Oh, they're all on the same screen. Silly me.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. was looking for the second file. Here we go.
Right, so this is down at the bottom of the channel. There was another 15-foot length of pipe or 16-foot length of pipe section on the end of that. And after this erosion occurred, the pipe basically just collapsed down the embankment, and we hauled that out of the channel, and it's up on the upland area and the shoulder. So what we want to do is replace that pipe. Well, let me back up. The plan here is to put like a hay bale check dam type of thing, or silt fence and or hay bales down at the outlet of the new section of pipe that we're going to be putting in, so that if there is any wet weather, it'll trap any sedimentation that comes through. The plan is to do this work when it's dry. But just definitely as a precaution, we'll put like a sort of a hay bale check dam at the outlet, and replace the fill material that has washed away and the pipe section, basically putting the outlet back where it was. And actually, this pipe is an old corrugated metal pipe that has eroded. The invert of the pipe is rusted out and needs to be replaced. So the plan here is not only to replace the end section that fell, but the entire pipe all the way back to the catch basin on the other side of the road. We will do that in sections. So we'll maintain one lane of traffic and install half the pipe, backfill that, button that up, and then come back and replace the other section of pipe in the other lane. And then the last thing would be to replace the outfall section that has fallen away. And we will not keep it open and exposed for any length of time. So the plan is to just install as much as we can get done in a day, and then button that up, and then move on to the next section. And like I said, we've done work like this before. This is a fairly, tricky one. It's fairly big pipe, but generally it's dry after several days of dry weather. You don't see base flow in there, but then when you get a significant rain event, you get some flow that lasts a couple of days. But that's basically where we are.
Now, before you put in your fill and your stone, John, do you have to widen this channel and like clear out some of the vegetation and make it kind of sculpted before you infill?
I don't anticipate possibly moving the riprap out of there that's fallen down. I think we'll do that so that we can dig in gravel material. But the outlet location is in the middle of that channel that you see in the background.
Mhm.
So it's pretty wide. There's enough room to work in there. So I wouldn't want to touch the embankment here. I don't think we have to. We actually shot the inverts of the pipe. We know exactly where it was. And the plan is to put the pipe outlet back where it was at the same elevations, and really not change anything. But like I said, before that pipe section that had collapsed was removed, we got a good location of it. And it's right in the you can see sort of the dark area of the soil on the left side of the photograph. That's about where the pipe outlet was, centered in that channel. So there's room to work without significant excavation, just probably cleaning it and then forming to get it at the right elevation, bringing in enough material to put the pipe back at the same elevation. But actually it wasn't, it's not that much material. It's like 4 or 6 inches of material below the pipe to put it back at the elevation. It kind of looks like, if you look at when we were looking at the other photograph sitting in the bottom looking up, it kind of looks like the pipe is way up in the air, but it really isn't. It was coming down at an angle There's about a foot of drop from the inlet side to that side. And it's kind of deceiving in that picture. It really is only about the end of the new pipe is only about a foot above this stone material that you can see in the photograph. Not a foot, more like 6 inches. So
And just,
not a lot of
just-
not a lot of material. Will form a bedding with the pipe in, and then backfill and compact around it. Restore the shoulder and place riprap over the for some width over the top of the pipe to make sure that it's stable.
I can show the plan view, John, if that's helpful.
Might be like the aerial or
Yeah, the rest of your documents so that if
Yeah,
anybody didn't
okay.
get out there, you can kind of see what's happening.
Yes, probably the profile shows, well, that both really. So that's just, that's drawn on the aerial image, obviously. But this is drawn out to scale. We did measure everything in the next photograph. The profile was what we intend to do. The dashed line is what the grade looks like now. It's distorted, scale, but it's to scale, just distorted. The plan is to extend that pipe. What you're looking at here is the final length of pipe where it extends beyond the embankment. And you can see that little triangular piece is the fill that's going back in the hole in that void.
This area.
So that's all
Yes.
gonna be, that's all gonna be riprap, John, I guess, right?
Correct. Well, on top. So
This is
in
Phil.
that area is fill. That'll just be common fill, except for up by the road where we
Oh, I
may
see.
use it.
Okay, all right, I got it.
Yep.
I got it.
Yep.
Yep. So part of the end of the downstream end of the pipe's gonna be exposed according to this, it looks
Here,
like.
yes.
Okay.
Right.
John, didn't you say at the site walk you were going to extend 15 feet outward with pipe?
From where
Yes.
it was cut
From-
off.
Yes. So the dashed line, and there's an invert elevation there. That's the pipe that you see in the photograph. I haven't really shown this as like the sections of pipe. That's the full length. So from the dashed line where I can't read the invert the number there.
91.84.
That's where the existing pipe is. The other number to the right is the elevation of where the new or the final outlet end will be. And that's where the old one was. That fell off and we hauled it away.
That was 15 feet.
Yes, it was like 15 or 16 feet.
Mhm.
I think the entire length is 60 feet from the catch basin to the
Said that
outlet.
here. 60 feet of 24-inch diameter.
Right.
And you'll have some stone at the outlet here.
Correct.
as
Yeah,
an
we'll have
energy dissipator there.
we'll form a riprap apron at the end, which is pretty much what you had before, although actually I don't know if that's kind of hard to see now. I'm not sure if that was a decent riprap outlet, but that's the plan. There's room within the right of way to construct that, to dissipate the flow.
And John, remind me what you're gonna do on Horse Pond Road so it doesn't happen again?
Oh,
So
and
there's I think part of the issue here was along where that guide rail, where you can see the guide rail in the photo. It's formed sort of a lip along the edge, and I think water traveled down the gutter further than it did probably in the past. And we can knock that down. We can like clean up the shoulder and knock that, we call it a windrow, but basically a lip along the edge. So that water will flow off as more like sheet flow and won't concentrate to provide some assurances that it's not going to erode again. you know, and
Yeah,
that's something
okay.
we'll keep an eye on and watch it, you know, and
Right.
if we need to do something in there, we will. The other thing that has to happen in here is the guide rail needs to be replaced where it's fallen down.
All right.
Now, being a show cause hearing, Aaron, there's no need to make a motion, correct?
Well, so this is, yeah, so basically if the agency agrees with, you know, the order, you can uphold that order, you can amend it and give us some, you know, a corrective action order. Or, you know, we could put a time frame that this be done. I mean, we clearly know that the town is looking to do this as soon as possible. And it is starting to dry out more than it was earlier this spring, so it's a better time.
I have a question. I'm curious why we wouldn't just install a catch basin on that side of the road to avoid the overland flow altogether?
It's there's quite a length of uncurbed roadway there. Most of Horse Pond Road is not curbed, so I don't think we want to change the flow regimes in there and take water that runs off in areas of sheet flow and concentrate that all into a catch basin and run it into the channel. I mean, I thought about that, yeah, actually, you know, but I think it's better off to put it back where it was. I'd rather not change things, change the way, you know, redirect flow around. I mean, generally my opinion is you want to avoid that as much as possible.
Seems like it wants to go here, though. This is the low spot over that pipe.
I don't know if that's a low point in the road, if that's a sag in the road, actually. It's a good question. I don't know if that is. It probably is. Because
Here's where
that's
it's
where
going to happen again at some point, you know? And then there's sort of untreated water going over that embankment or along the edge of the road there to that water course.
Well, it has been, I mean, it sheet flows generally now because the road is crowned, right? So it is getting sheet flow. I mean, I guess the stormwater, if you put a catch basin in, it's still untreated stormwater.
Yeah, if you put a sump in it, it helps a little bit, and then it's just a little bit more controlled.
But John, did you say it's a concentration of rather than actually sheet flow, it's turned into like, because of the way the shoulder had developed, that the flow was coming down and concentrated, which was making the erosion quicker. Is that what you're saying? And you can
Well,
fix
yeah,
that part, right?
I think that's contributed to the erosion, you know, and that happens in places where we need to Public Works needs to maintain areas like that. You know, that can happen, that can form with plowing and things like that. But
Right.
as far as the idea of putting a catch basin in here, you really have several hundred feet on either side of this. That it's an uncurbed section. Horse Pond Road is not a curbed road in general. There are a few areas we did put curbing in, to the north of here, I guess it is. I wasn't intending to put curb here and put a basin in. I think that changes. That starts changing flow.
Sure, okay.
And we'd have to, you know, if we did that, we'd have to survey it all and kind of and design it, I guess. But the plan
Yeah.
was to put it back.
Okay.
And I guess that could be something down the road if you find that the adjustments and just the adjacent shoulder grade isn't addressing the runoff, then you may have, you know, and you have further erosion problems, then you look at it then, you know, after you're monitoring. I think the intent at this point was just to restore to pre-storm conditions, and just try to correct that it is, you could see the rills where it has been concentrated. So.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we do that now. We see areas that if we can, if there's erosion happening and we think, and we have the ability to put curbing in to direct flow, as long as we're not directing more flow to an area, because we're running this channel goes across private property. We have to really look at that. If we were gonna, when we do things like putting curb in, we have to look at is additional flow area getting into that location and going across somebody else's land now.
Right, right. Okay, thank you. I get it.
So is it your goal, John, to be done by, say, July 31st?
Yes, I hope so. Yeah, that's the plan. As soon as we can get a, you know, we actually have the material that we need for the pipe and all that. Plan is to get started on this quickly. So yeah, hopefully we'll get it done before the end of July. I think we
Alright.
will.
So I'm guilty of not seeing the actual order. So would you recommend, Aaron, we just put a time frame that within a reasonable dry period that this be done by, say, is July 1st too far out there?
July 1st, yeah, I think
July 31st?
I would just say, yeah, I mean, you could, just to remain safe.
August 31st.
Yeah, I was gonna say the end,
Yeah, I
you know,
was gonna say
months is fine. That's dry period.
Yeah, I trust John that that the town wants to get it done sooner rather than later. So,
It did look like a safety issue there.
Right.
'Cause
Yeah.
who's to say more won't flake off.
Exactly. So right now we still have two lanes there, and unfortunately it's a very wide road in that section. But you know, this is something we want to get right on. In fact, you know, we thought we were going to get to this sooner than when I was talking to Aaron about the schedule and everything, I knew there was a couple of weeks out with the site walk and so forth. So yeah, no, it's something we want to get done right away.
Okay.
But God
so-
forbid there was a delay rather than have to have you return to us asking for an extension or something, you know, August is fine, I think, and we'll know that. You know, every
Okay,
attempt.
so we'll leave the order in place and we'll thank John and the crew for jumping on this as soon as possible, hopefully done by the middle of August.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Okay.
Nice work, John.
Bye.
Onward we
Okay.
go.
Yes, Mr. Vice Chair, we didn't at the beginning of the meeting read the legal notice in for this public hearing, but I did want to do that just before we start the public hearing, so that we are covered.
Perfect.
Notice is hereby given that the agency will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 5th, 2023 at 7 p.m. The meeting will be conducted remotely as a Zoom online webinar. The public is invited to attend by joining the webinar through either the webinar link or call-in information. The Zoom webinar ID is 915-8196-6735, and the passcode is 452138. The application is 23-11 Mungertown Road, map 56, lot 1. The owner is the town of Madison. The applicant is Madison Board of Education. It's a regulated activity permit to construct a new elementary school with paved parking lots, associated site improvements within 100-foot upland review area. At this hearing, written communications will be received and interested parties will be heard. Further details on how to participate in the webinar are posted on the Town of Madison website, www.madisonct.org. Application materials will be posted to the website through the agenda for the meeting. Questions and/or comments may be emailed to landuse@madisonct.org up to 24 hours in advance of the meeting. dated this 3rd day of May, 2023. Kayla Friedenberg, chairwoman. This ran in the source once on May 25th and once on June 1st, 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Uh,
So
so-
application number 23-11, I'd like to officially open the public hearing. This application debuted on our agenda on March 6th. And if I'm not mistaken, Aaron, that site walk was on March 18th. And the group was led to the east toward the Neck River wetland area where we were given a tour of the extent of the activity in the wetlands. I do want to say that tonight what we'll do is we'll hear from the applicant and the team, and then I'd like to ask if there's anyone in the public. First thing, we'll take direct questions to the board or to the agency, and then that'll just go right to the applicant, and they'll be able to answer them a little bit later. And then we'll do the call for people who are in favor, and then the people who are against. So, are the applicants present?
Let's make sure we have everybody. Oh, and Ernest, I did. Okay, so Ernest, if needed, is here. Will. Just for all of our informations, the agency hired a third-party environmental professional to review the application. That is Davison Environmental. So Matt is here to listen to the presentation and ask any questions as necessary. Yes, Martin.
Joel?
If I may, excuse me, Mr. Vice Chair, I just want to let everyone know, although I missed the formal site walk, I was able to get onto the property and conduct my own walk throughout the area and the wetlands, so I'm very familiar with it. And secondly, I want to disclose that the applicant's engineer, Banesh, is a client of mine. I currently have active projects with them, and also I've worked on numerous projects alongside George Logan. So I do have professional relationships with the engineer and their consultant. And I do feel that I will be able to provide an objective viewpoint for this application.
Okay, thanks, Martin.
Thank you,
Sure.
Martin.
It is the intent of the agency to leave the hearing open tonight and go to July. This will give Matt Davison some time to digest everything he heard today and give us a detailed response by the next hearing date. So at this time, who's going to speak first to the agency? I see we had a hand.
Yes,
Graham.
Graham Curtis.
Yep.
I'll start off with an introduction. Good afternoon, good evening, I guess by now. A long day. My name is Graham Curtis. I live at 60 Devonshire Lane, for the record. I'm the chairman of the Madison Elementary School Building Committee. Tonight with me, I have our design team, and we have Will Walter representing Banesh, the civil engineer, George Logan, who did the wetland mapping and prepared the wetland, and Tecton Architects, Ernie Napolitano is also available if necessary, if there's any architectural questions. Just want to give you a little background. The Board of Education has been working on this plan to reorganize the school into a 4-school model for over 10 years, which is culminating tonight in this project that we're going to present tonight, showing a new elementary school located off of Mungertown Road. It's been a long effort. The project was approved at a referendum last February, and we're working on the design phase up until this point. The new school program will consist of 2 K-5 schools, a middle school and a high school. This will be a K-5 school that serves most of the southern end of town. One of the concerns that when we hired the consultant, we expressed a desire to make sure that the septic system protected the wetlands as much as possible. So we endeavored to comply with the more stringent DEP standards, which we did, even though we're being permitted through local and state DOHS regulations. And Will Walter will kind of explain the details in that. I believe that was recently approved locally by the local sanitarian. Additionally, a little more background, we worked with the Madison Land Trust and the town to dedicate a parcel of land separating our parcel from the high school, which is a riparian buffer, and also to allow us to proceed, simplify our permitting process with the state. And we concluded that effort and transferred that land, and we're looking forward to working collaboratively with the land trust on developing some pollinator garden areas along that perimeter, and working with a volunteer with this high school group to do that. But some of the details are still being worked out on that end. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Will to kind of explain this, go through the site plan and explain how we got to the design we have today.
Okay, great. Thanks, Graham. For the record, Will Walter, professional engineer with Alfred Bench and Company. I'm the engineer of record on the project. Aaron, I'm going to share my screen.
Sure.
And if everybody could please confirm that they can see the Bing maps that I have open.
I can see it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with where this property is, but just to give some context, here's north is up. This is Bing maps. Here's Mungertown Road. And then here's Green Hill Road. Here's the high school over here. It's this vacant agricultural property right here, bordered by on the west by Mungertown, on the north by residences, on the south by residences, and on the east it's bordered by, well, previously was bordered by the Neck River that kind of meanders down here. Now a slice of that has been carved off and deeded to the land trust. I know this is a wetlands hearing, but I figure it will be helpful to just at least give a little bit of a background of the site design. So again, north is up. Mungertown runs north-south on the left. Here's the Neck River kind of running around over here. The blue line over here is the wetlands. And essentially, under existing conditions, the topography is such that it's a high point up by the road, and then it slopes down somewhat gently down about 18 or 20 feet down to the wetlands down here. So everything flows from the west to the east, with the Neck River and the wetlands over here on the east. The building is right here. The building has one open courtyard, and it's been set back off the road. There's a zoning setback, so the building's been set outside of that setback. And then the building has been designed so that it's going to work very, very nicely with the topography. So on the western part of the building right here, there's 1 story. So the finished floor elevation is approximately the same as the road grade out here. And then right about here, a second level drops so that you have this whole part of the school there's the finished floor continues at that same street elevation, but it also drops, I believe, 13 or 14 feet, so that the finished floor back here is at that lower grade of the existing topography back here. The site has been designed to have 2 site entrances. The one on the north is for 2 specific purposes. One, it's only for bus drop-off, which the bus drop-off is going to be accommodated up here. We're showing that we've designed it as a regatta style bus, that we can actually accommodate all the buses that could possibly be picking up or dropping off at one time, which is 25. In reality, it's only going to be 6 or 8 at a time, but we have designed this very, very conservatively, just in case that happens, so that no bus backup will occur onto the road. And then, so that's a bus entrance, and this is also a service entrance tucked way back down here behind a retaining wall where no one can see. We have our utility, it's going to be our drop-off. We have our mechanical spaces and things of that nature. The second curb cut and entrance off of Mungertown Road is down here on the southern portion, and this is where parent drop and the employees are going to park down here, and the parent drop is such that we've accommodated a tremendous amount of parent drop where they can circle all the way around like this and come back up, and the drop will and pickup will occur up here, and then they'll come and exit the site. And we've accommodated about 85 or 90 parent drops, so that in addition to the spaces where the parents can park, we've done this so that there will be little to no backup of cars onto the road. That was a very, very important part of the design. So we have, as far as placemaking spaces, we have some outdoor spaces down here. We have 3 playgrounds, a pre-KK playground up front, up here, a couple of K5 playgrounds right there and right there. And they sandwich a basketball court with some other hardscape areas for Foursquare and things like that. We have down here in the floodplains, which I'll talk about in a little bit, we have a couple of multi-purpose natural grass fields. So moving on to the stormwater design. Excuse me, I'm battling some allergies here. The green is the wetlands. The cyan, which is the hatched kind of cyan area, is the upland review area, which is about 2.3 acres of disturbance in the upland review area. The red here is the 500-year floodplain. So there's a lot going on this site, and it looks like when you're out at the site, it looks like you have a lot of land to work with. And while you do, there's so much going on that, you know, I mean, I want to say it's been a challenge, but it's a challenge in every project to fit the program in and meet all the regulatory requirements. So the first thing, obviously, is the green line is the wetlands. We've worked very hard to keep completely out of the wetlands. We're not disturbing 1 square foot of wetlands. This floodplain line right here, which follows the contour, the regulations, and keep in mind, we've done all this design in coordination with the town engineer. But this 500-year floodplains, not only do we have to the east of this red line, have 0 total fill down here, but we have to have 0 fill per each foot of elevation raise as we start from the wetlands. Each foot we go up. So it's not a matter of just 0 compensatory total, it's every foot. And we have to keep that finished floor elevation at 2 feet above the 500-year floodplain. So if you can imagine, here's the building line right here. It's on the east side, on the floodplain side of that floodplain line. So we have to do some filling in here. So we've really had to work very hard to grade this so that we were not filling in the floodplain. And then also, having put one of the multi-use fields right here, we want to raise that up as much as possible so the kids aren't playing, you know, in a swamp. So there's a lot of things going on that we've had to work really hard to do. But with the stormwater design, there's really 3 goals with the stormwater design. One is whatever is naturally flowing down over the grasslands right now into the wetlands, whatever the peak flows are through the 200-year design storms, we have to capture the water and detain it and regulate it and then discharge it at a lower peak rate for the 2, 10, 25, and 100-year design storms. We're doing that by capturing the flow in all of these impervious areas, including the roof, and we're discharging it to 3 stormwater management areas. The first one is on the north side. It's an above ground basin, which we always prefer to go above ground when we can. And we had the ability to do it over here. And the above ground basin is basically going to be a depression that's in the middle of the island, the grass island, around the parking and the drive aisle. On the south side, we just simply didn't have the topography or the room to go above ground. So we've gone with 2 underground detention systems, and you can see I've highlighted them here in blue. I believe they're 4.5 or 5 foot half moon chambers that are open so that the stormwater flows in. They're sitting on about a foot of stone. The water comes in and it percolates in the ground, which is fantastic because the first flush is treated and by discharging back to the ground. And then for the smaller storms, we're the majority of the flows are going to be infiltrating to the ground. And for the larger storms, as they perk up through that stone, as they bubble up through that chamber, we have overflow, overflow pipes, which then discharge the flow to two areas. And we've designed this specifically in coordination with the town engineer. So the flow comes out of here and it comes down to one of these two, what we call overflow level spreaders. And there's one right here and there's another one down here. So the water comes in, and these things are basically a concrete chamber where the pipe comes in. It's a concrete trench. The pipe comes in, it tees to a perforated horizontal 24-inch pipe that's surrounded by stone in the trench. The water then bubbles up and sheet flows over the concrete and riprap level spreader. So instead of point discharging to the wetlands, it sheet flows. You can see it's sheet flowing like this over here. And it's doing the same thing, sheet flowing over here. And that was a design that I've used that many times. It's a really good design. And the town engineer really liked it. So that's how we're regulating the discharge to the wetlands that eventually gets down to the Neck River and not causing washout. The other goal of the stormwater management system is to take that first flush and to treat it, because the first flush is basically it's the first inch of rainfall. And basically the pollutants are you find them on the paved surfaces, and they're just a result of car exhaust, the heavy metals coming out of the exhaust, occasionally oil drippings, things like that. And the thought in the regulations that DEP has put forth that we all adhere to and design to is that first inch of rainfall is what carries away the sediment that's holding on to these pollutants. And so what we've done is, as we capture it and we come into what's called a sediment forebay that basically treats that, and then it spills over and gets into the larger part of the detention. And from there it spills out and goes to the wetland. And then in these underground systems, these are designed with what's called an isolator row that's really performing that same function as a sediment forebay. And so we've designed the water quality to meet the DEP requirements. I just got an email today from the town engineer on his review of the stormwater management system, and he had a couple of very, very minor comments, which we will certainly address. But basically, he had looked like he had accepted our design part and parcel. So that's the other part of the stormwater design. The third part is, I'm not showing it here, but it's defined in our erosion control plans that we've provided a very comprehensive erosion control design that during construction, we're going to make sure that all the stormwater is treated and that the stormwater, because it's going to be muddy, obviously, because this is going to be in construction. We have things like construction entrances, temporary sediment traps, silt fence, hay bale, temporary washout areas, things of that nature. So the sediment controls have been designed per the 2000 DEP erosion control manual. And I'm not showing it here, but that is a part of the plan set. And the last thing that I would like to talk about before I turn it over to George Logan, and he'll talk about his inventory of the wetlands and his review of our stormwater design, which we did in concert with George as well. And then his opinion of the impact on the functions and values of the wetlands. The last thing I want to talk about is the utilities on the site. So currently there is no public water. We're extending the public main about half a mile up from Green Hill Road, which is way up this way. There's going to be a 12-inch water main extension that runs all the way down like this, all the way down. We're taking it past here actually because the fire marshal is requiring us to put a fire hydrant right here, which Connecticut Water is requiring be right off their main. So there's going to be a fire hydrant right here, a fire hydrant up here. We're bringing in a domestic and a fire protection lateral like this into the building. There is no natural gas, but you can see I've highlighted in green. We're going to be providing a geothermal well field, which is fantastic. It's green, it's awesome. So that's going to help power the facility right here. And then the last thing I want to talk about is the septic system. Typically, what you do with the septic system is you would put it down gradient of the facility. We could, I believe, by regulation, we actually probably could put that septic system down here in this open space down close to the wetlands. But it was very important to the building committee that we designed it with consideration for nitrogen loading. Now, nitrogen loading and nitrogen dilution is something that DEP requires when you have a DEP system, and that's triggered when your total flow is 7,500 gallons or more. In this case, our total flow is somewhere around 7,200 gallons a day, which means that the reviewing authorities are the Madison Health Department and the Connecticut Department of Public Health. Connecticut DEP has no jurisdiction over this design. But what we've done is, instead of putting it down here where I believe we could get it permitted by the local health department and by DPH, we are coming out and we are pumping it up this way. And I've laid this out. It's the red lines that you see. All right. And there's, these are proprietary leaching systems that we're using, which are very, very effective at treating the septic. So what's going to happen is we're going to pump it up, 3 separate pumps, 3 separate systems pumped into these red leaching units out here. These are located anywhere between 400 and 650 linear feet from the wetlands, and much further than that from the river. So what's going to happen is the water is going to get pumped up here, then it's going to gravity into these leaching systems. It's going to percolate vertically down through the soils. We've done all the tests, and then it's going to slowly migrate underground, slowly down like this towards the wetlands. We've also designed the stormwater system such that the stormwater, after it rains, it's going to be in this system. We have some linear units here, here, and here, and elsewhere that are going to naturally dilute the septic effluent as it migrates down here to the wetlands. Now, keep in mind, none of this is required by Madison Public Health or the Department of Public Health. We're doing this just as an extra measure so that the Wetlands Commission and the Building Committee can feel great that this septic system is not going to impact the wetlands. And that's exactly what we've done. So right now, the Madison Health Department has completed their review. The review has been ongoing by both the Madison Health Department and the Department of Public Health, but the Madison Health Department has completed their review, and now the Department of Public Health has had it for probably about a week and a half or 2 weeks. But they've been informed of this, this design the whole time. So I'm hoping to get comments back from them in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And then, of course, we'll respond to their comments as we need to. But we feel that this septic system has gone significantly above and beyond what is required, again, by the local and state health departments. And so at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn it over to George Logan, who's our soil scientist on the project.
Good evening, everyone. George Logan here for the record, professional wetland scientist, registered soil scientist, senior ecologist with the Ecological Society of America. So I have one thing that I probably need to ask before I proceed is if I can share my screen. So if I can, sure. I guess. Yes. Well, okay. So here we are. I don't know if you folks can see. Hold on a second here. Maybe go, okay. I got a lot of overlapping things here, so I need to figure, all right. Can you see that? Yes, affirmative?
Yes, perfect.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right. All right, so I'll try to go, I wouldn't say fast, but I just want to give you an overview of what I've done so far. My involvement goes back to the summer of 2022, when I was contacted, and the first order of business, as usual, was to delineate the wetlands. So in August, mid-August or so, I went out, and the delineation is pretty straightforward. Most of the wetlands are, if you will, within the wooded portion of the site, because the rest of it has been obviously used as active agriculture for, has a long history of it being an open field. There's one little corner, and I'll show you that, where there's actually a wetland that protrudes into the bottom section of the field. So two reports have gone out. One was my soil wetland delineation report that sort of supports the wetland delineation. That's, I think, dated sometime in March. And then there's a secondary report, which is our typical wetlands assessment, a summary of findings. That was back in May, mid-May, which I think you have both of them in your record. And those have attachments to them. And what you see here in figure 1 is basically the attachment to that second report that shows you the general idea of where the site is. You see the new high school, or not so new anymore. You see the highway below us, and bottom left, you see these little blue hatch lines, and that's significant tidal wetland. So all this, Neck River, as you know, goes right through the site and then ends up in Long Island Sound. So the first thing I want to do is sort of describe the wetlands for you a little bit. So I found this oblique viewer, which unfortunately is no longer available. I'm very disappointed. It's figure 2 of my report. I believe it's a 2016 flight date. There we go, top right. And you can see the outline of the field. And you can imagine that the wetland, more or less, and you'll see another picture in a moment, follows along the wooded edge, was slightly in it. And you see that I have called something a wetland A1 and something a wetland A2. And you'll see in a minute why I've done that. Again, these wetlands are associated with Neck River, and this is the main channel that I'm showing right there. There's a side channel where you can't see. Oh, you can see Neck River side channel. So that flows through and then back into the main channel. You can see this wetland, which is not immediately associated with Neck River, but of course it is during larger storm events. The watershed, and why am I saying this? It's significant to mention that Neck River has a significant watershed. It goes into adjacent towns, as you know. Over 3,000 acres of watershed, about 5 square miles. And it's considered to be a Class A water. Now, it is a Class A water, but it is been impaired. It's designated as an impaired water body. But not for wildlife, not for aquatic resources, not for a whole bunch of things that we like to look at watercourses for, but specifically for bacteria. So we have elevated bacteria concentrations in this portion of Neck River down to Long Island Sound. And this, and I'll show you in a moment, this is part of a fairly large, I mean, for any Connecticut town, wetland complex. So here's show and tell. This is a 1965 aerial photograph. You can see the site again outlined, the field, a little bit of snow drift there. That's what you see down there. You can see within the larger wetland of the river, you can see something that's kind of open here. This is an upland island, and it's probably the only upland island that's not a wetland. And I'll show you that in a moment. Going back a little further, 1934, here we go. And one of the things that's interesting about this, you probably say, well, what's this white line that's following the edge of the woods? And what that is a very low berm that was constructed probably by the farming activities. I don't think it was done on purpose. And it kind of shows pretty nicely in this particular aerial photograph. Here's the watershed. This is figure 5 in my report. I was able to grab that from USGS Stream Stats, which is one of the applications that we use to kind of tell us where things, and lo and behold, it allows you to take it out as a KMZ file and then plop it on Google Earth, which is wonderful. And so that gives you an idea of the watershed. And if you look carefully down in the bottom here when the hand is, that's the site. It's very small in comparison. That will come into discussion a little later when we talk a little bit about the septic system. Here's a figure without a label. So I lost the label. So if this was figure 5, this must be figure 6. And what I've done here through the Connecticut Eco GIS system is I've overlaid various resources. You can see some green shading in there. You can see some pink mauve, purple, and all combined, that shows you where, at least from the GIS system, shows where your contiguous wetlands are associated with the wetlands of the site. And believe me, it's actually larger than that. If you kind of overlay on top of that the soils, and if you look at the topography, altogether to Route 95, and then to, I guess, the road that's up further, which I forgot its name already, which is this road up here, Green Hill Road. That's about 75 acres worth of a contiguous wetland resource. Most of it is obviously forested, but then, as you probably know, there's a park here, and it's got some other resources, some little open ponds, some meadows, etc., that you don't see and highlighted, but they're there. And this is a hot spot for wildlife observation, which is great. So you have tons of sightings of even bobcat, coyote, and so on. So this is a pretty significant resource, and I'll get back to that. So we need to be careful as to what we're doing, what we're permitting. I'm not going to bore you with geology and soils here, but obviously the soils are, we got a wash basically, and we got some swamp deposits also. We got ninnegrets, moderately well-drained ninnegret soils that are in the lower portions of the field, and we have a haven silt loam, which is a well-drained. So there, again, it's a silt loam, so it's fine, and ninnegret is very fine sandy loam. In this particular case. And then, of course, the wetland soils are what you would expect from an alluvial soil. So we have some ripple wham in there, which is your poorly drained. Interestingly enough, the NRCS USDA doesn't show any very poorly drained soils, but obviously there is some here. So I basically said, okay, we've got some SACO in here. So I've included that in my soil report because it's quite obvious. Going down, I was able to glean this from the Connecticut DEP fishery community data. We don't have a cold water fishery, at least down here. Obviously, the upper reaches within the town, there's probably some cold water fishery component to this. But down here is a sampling location that Connecticut DEP did, just above our transportation corridor 95, and you can see what they found. A lot of American eel, which is not unusual for a lot of these streams. Chain pickerel, that's kind of a little bit unusual. And then what's really unusual is the four-spine stickleback. But that kind of tells you that there is a tidal component. So it's obviously because of, you know, sticklebacks are a near shore marine species. Wetland characterization. Let's see if I can go here, give you a little bit of an idea of what we have. Now you can see the topography that, and this is 1 foot topography, care of Connecticut DEP GIS. I'm calling this wetland A2 because it's sort of more separated from more of the riparian portion of this wetland, large wetland. This has a little different character to it. Obviously, it will flood up, and you saw the flood line earlier from Will. But this is more of your somewhat more typical red maple swamp, whereas if you go in here, it's a whole bunch of different things, which I'll explain in a moment. So wetland A again has two components, and here's this little portion that juts out into the field. It's a little wet meadow, and I'll show you some photographs too. So again, seasonally flooded, seasonally saturated, temporarily flooded. You know, when the river overflows, there's some areas that are permanently saturated, and here it's quite wet. The further you go away from the property, that's the case, or maybe at the edges of the property, that's the case. So this is a palustrin forested wetland by National Wetlands Inventory Classification. And somewhere in the report, I've given you what I call a wetland delineation characterization field form, which has a lot of different information on things like HGM, hydrogeological classification, and those kinds of things that you probably are used to seeing. Now, from a vegetative component, obviously we have red maple. There's a little silver maple in there, not much. It's not a tremendous amount of diversity in the wetland, but at least a moderate. Wetland A2 has actually a little more diversity than what I saw in A1, and has less invasive species than what I saw in wetland A1. Because of the fact that wetland A1 is influenced by the river flows, all kinds of things come down to it, including things that we don't like. So invasive species. And one of the invasive species that I'm probably 80% sure is there, and I'll show you a picture. I wasn't able to physically get to it because the center of this wetland is quite dense and kind of treacherous to get through it unless you're really prepared for it. And I think what I saw is an infestation of Milam minute vine, or Asiatic smart weed, as some people call it, Persicaria. That's not unusual to see along rivers. I've seen several other rivers. It's only been around now for maybe 12 to 15 years, maybe a little longer. It's kind of a new occurrence, and it seems like we got more of those as we go by. So wetland functions and values obviously is one thing that we always talk about. So having told you that you have a humonidal watershed, you have a significant river, you have a significant wetland complex, 75 acres, you have wetlands, regardless of whether they're invasives in there, there's good structure to them, there's good diversity. So you wouldn't be surprised if you saw in my report that out of the 13 or 14 functions and values that we typically evaluate, and I've done this usually using mostly professional judgment, we follow the typical U.S. Army Corps of Engineers descriptive approach, a methodology that's the one that most of us use around here. We were trained in many others, but that's the one that we use. So you have groundwater recharge, discharge, you have flood flow alteration, obviously, is principal. These are principal or primary functions. You have sediment, toxic, and pathogen retention. You have your nutrient attenuation, the transformation, removal, production, export into, as things. And it's important for, obviously, for the river to have production, export, because that's the base of the food chain. Don't have endangered species habitat. We don't have a NDDB occurrence here, or if you look at the maps. Visual aesthetics, not so much. Educational scientific potential, depends what side of the river you're on, not so much. Recreation, not so much. So these are secondary functions, they're present. I put uniqueness and heritage as being a principal or primary function, because obviously this is a very large system of significant river resource for the town. But the thing that I would say was interesting is a lot of these things, functions are things that are intrinsic to a wetland. wildlife habitats there, whether we're not there or not. But then there are values. These are the things that we derive as a society. So when I say educational scientific value, obviously we need to have some prospective people that to be educated and be scientifically made illiterate. So we don't have that now, at least on this portion of the site, on our site. So the opportunity is not there. The potential is there, but the opportunity is not there. But when the school is built, if it's to be built, the visual quality, aesthetics, the educational, scientific value, the recreational value, they're all going to go up. Now, would they be principal? Perhaps, but certainly they will be enhanced. Okay, so I've kind of given you an idea of what we have here for resource, and the next thing I want to quickly talk about is potential impacts. As we heard earlier, there's no direct impacts. He said not 1 square foot. I like that, of a direct impact to the wetlands here. And that's always the goal, obviously. So then setting that aside, the next thing we look at is indirect impacts. And there are several categories of indirect impacts, which are also physical. So we don't talk about impacts to wildlife per se, but we talk about impacts to the habitat that the wildlife uses. So we're looking at physical impacts to, say, the hydrology of a wetland. Are we messing up the hydrology? We're looking at the water quality of the wetland or watercourse. That's a physical impact. And of course, we're also looking at short-term and long-term. So the short-term will be more of what happens during construction, obviously. So from erosion sedimentation control perspective, as we've been told, there is a pretty robust plan. And I'm sure that your third-party reviewer will review that and may make any recommendations that are necessary, because that's, to me, often that's the most important part. I see most of the issues that happen is because of lack of forethought with erosion and sedimentation control, maintenance, and monitoring. And that's quite important. And of course, this is a high visibility project, so I expect that would happen anyhow. So there are components that we look at to assess what the risk is for this short-term potential indirect impact. So we have a good plan, and that the plan has to be vetted by the Connecticut DEP under the general permit, as you probably all know. Now, soil textures are also important. If the textures are too coarse, that's a problem. If the textures are too fine, that's a problem. The textures here are fine, so that's something to be concerned of. And they have a moderate, up to moderate erosive potential for the surface layers, but the parent material is a little more erosive because they're fine materials. The havens in particular, they have fine sea horizons, if you will. So that's important. But on the other part, the slopes are generally gentle and to nearly level, so we don't have tremendous cuts and fills that are going to happen here. And things are going to be exposed for a long time. And so I think that the risk for erosion sedimentation, as it would affect during the short term your regular resources, is low overall. Next thing we always look at is what's happening to the immediate environment that's next to a wetland. We like to talk about setbacks, buffers, the upland review area, and those are interchangeable terms and overlapping and to some extent. But we all know that the functions and values of a wetland are also, enhanced, if you will, supported by what's happening in the area that's immediately next to, in the uplands. So very often we want to be sure that we don't remove vegetation that's supporting that function. But in this particular case, we're kind of fortunate, and the design has been also taking advantage of that, in the sense that We don't have to cut trees. We don't have to cut vegetation. There's a little bit of vegetation right here that will be cut. But if you look at it, I'll show you some photographs. That's shrubbery and invasive species, multiflora rose being the primary one. So maybe we have about 2,800 square feet of woody vegetation that's being removed there. There's a little more up in this area, but limited, very, very limited. So the next category that we usually look at, and this is relatively easy in this particular case, is are we changing the hydrology of the stream flow of a wetland? And of course, the stream flow is an obvious no, because we have a humongous watershed that's being supported, that supports the river environment. But we did say in our report that we have a groundwater component, and the groundwater component is in part the immediate edge of wetland A2, but more so wetland A2, which obviously have a hill that's kind of rolling right down to it. So this has more of a seasonal groundwater component to it than say the rest of the wetland as a whole. So that's important. What our engineer said is that we haven't changed the stream, the component of groundwater or surface flow, so it's all kind of been distributed in a similar manner as it is under existing conditions, to the extent possible, obviously. But the important thing is, you saw from the plan, just up the hill from this wetland A2, there's two sets of infiltrators, and that's important. So that was not by chance. That was a calculated thing that was done in the design to be sure that this wetland, its hydrology is maintained. And so that's the case. So I don't expect the hydrology of these wetlands to be affected in any way. The next thing we talk about is a potential water quality impacts. And that's an important one. Obviously, we have Class A water, bacteria notwithstanding. We have a fishery, we have an aquatic environment, so we have a certain amount of sensitivity. And then typically flowing water is more sensitive than, especially in the larger, medium, say, to larger watersheds. And of course, the further up you go into the watershed, the more sensitive it becomes, because you have less of a watershed, and you most likely have a headwater somewhere that's quite sensitive. Not so much here. However, water quality is still important. So we need to not only comply with the Connecticut manual, the 2004. And by the way, the draft 2023 is out, and that will be in effect probably by the end of the year, most likely. It's quite nice. I've been looking at it. A lot of information in there, significantly more stuff on LID, for instance. So we need to be sure that our water quality is exceptional coming down. So we're complying with the 2004 manual. We have above ground primary treatment system. We have some secondaries. We have a train, a treatment train. We're accommodating the water quality volume, and we can get into talking about that a little more. We have a hydrodynamic separator in one of the catchment areas, and then of course the underground infiltration systems with the oscillator row, which the oscillator rows, according to the literature, can do up to 80% total suspended solids removal, which is sort of that, at least under the 2004, because that will go to 90, by the way. But these will do in a treatment train up to 90 plus. But that's what they're supposed to do. They take the fines out, and these are portions of the infiltration, underground infiltration, that is able to be also maintained. So you can maintain them and then remove any sediment that's been sequestered there. One of the things that I was most interested in, and it was a very calculated design here, and had to do with the septic system. And you were told a little before, the septic system could have gone below, so you could have positive flow down into it. just before you get to the flat, say. But it was put as far away as possible from the regular resource. You know this from hearing what I have to say before, that nitrogen is an issue. This is a pollutant that's basically man-made for the most part. From it's in great amounts from septic systems, and it can affect the environment. And if you go and look at nitrogen within natural systems, even ones that are slightly impaired, you will typically not see concentrations that are above 1 milligram per liter, and most often they're much less than 0.5 milligrams per liter. And that concentration is what affects the environment, especially flowing waters or open waters, because it's almost like instant fertilizer, which can lead to algal blooms. And in a flowing system, it basically smothers a hard habitat, and then that affects the macroinvertebrates, the benthic organism, which then, of course, has a cascaded phenomenon to the fishery. But here, what has happened is that if you look at the system, what you see is that as far as the river is concerned, even the side channel which flows, we have upwards of 650 feet, close to 690 feet is the closest. And so there's a very, very long path through finer soils, which is also good, means they're not as fast. So there's more attenuation that's happening. And the concentrations are being diluted so they don't have an effect. The closest area is wetland A2. And up from here, the septic system sort of in the order of 450 or so feet, so closer. And we know we have a groundwater component in this wetland, so that's just also important. Now, the good part about that is that the stream or the river, the flowing environment, is much more sensitive on one side of the equation, if you will, but not sensitive on the other side of the equation, because you have a tremendous dilution capacity to it from this very large watershed. But wetland A2 is a red maple swamp. It does have a lot of denitrification that can happen there without causing an issue with the biota and with the vegetation. But even so, as you heard, what has happened above it is that right in line from the septic system to this wetland, we have two sets of infiltrators that are pumping water, the water quality volume at a minimum, into the ground, which further dilutes the concentration, so that when it does express in the wetland, it doesn't result in sort of rank vegetation and all kinds of impacts. So now, as far as the river is concerned, we're making the assumption that the groundwater is being expressed along the edge here. But very often what happens, and depending on strata, the groundwater is much deeper, and then it upwells into the system itself. And so that's a much worse scenario than direct discharge right into a particular wetland. So again, I'll show you a few pictures, and then I'll just finish my presentation. So let's see. And some of those pictures are kind of grainy. This is from Neck River. It's quite nice. This is a fox grape tangle, and here you got good vegetation in here. Good vegetation along the river. I did see some cardinal flower, which was very exciting. Whenever I see it, it's beautiful. This was in February. Herbie said 22nd. I've crossed the side channel, which was not flowing much, was flowing a little bit, and I'm looking back into the field. This is your little wet meadow. It's got good diversity, and it's got autumn olive there. We can take care of that, obviously. You can see some Joe Pye weed, goldenrods. There's other things in here. It's not bad. It's, could be maintained as a pollinator species, could even be enhanced. And I've heard something that, this and other areas on the site could be enhanced. This is where I was saying that this is as close as I could get to where I think there's Malaminate vine, which is kind of smothers. You can see it's like these blankets that blanket the vegetation, kills everything. This is, I did a delineation for, and this is another portion of presentation for another one. This is where we're going to get some utilities coming along Green Hill Road. Wetland A2, again, a lot of different character in here. This is a wetland that I particularly liked. It's got good vegetation in it. Obviously, ferns are always nice to see. You got both cinnamon ostrich in there. Here's a view looking back into the field from the edge of the wetland where the wet meadow is, which kind of protrudes into the field. And then another lower portion of the open field, looking sort of southerly here. And so that's all for now. So I guess my conclusion is that no direct impacts and the indirect impacts are really minimal. And so I believe that these wetlands will continue to function in similar levels as they function under existing conditions when and if the school is built. And I will end my presentation with that. Thank you.
George, on a map, could you show where the wet meadow is?
Oh,
Or
sure.
was it,
I got to go
was it-
back up. Sorry about
that's
that.
okay. Was it near the A2 wetland?
No, it's the complete opposite. So it's right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ah,
And by the way, so that you know, my last flag was here in the middle of a multiflora thicket. And I'm like, I don't think I want to go any further. So I kind of mapped it, but you can kind of see it follows the contour. So this is why I said this is field map versus delineated, but this is the little wet meadow, just a little piece right here. Now, that's
thank you.
the ones that distinctive. There's a little bit of a wet meadow fringe down in this area too. Just a little narrow one. Yeah, you're welcome.
Ma'am, is there anyone else on the team speaking tonight?
No, I think so. I should have introduced Bill McMahon. I apologize, Bill. Like longtime resident Board of Education facility support. So I'm remiss in not pointing Bill out, but that basically concludes our presentation for tonight. I know you're going to hold the hearing open, but we're available to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, there definitely was a lot to digest. Anyone on the commission with questions?
I have a couple questions, Joe.
Okay,
A couple for Will. I was wondering what the depth is to groundwater in the western end of the site where the septic leaching fields are going to go.
Yeah, let me share my screen. So it was interesting, Martin. Of course, we did test pits with DPH in attendance and the health department in attendance over all these areas. And over here, it's a little more restrictive, generally speaking. In fact, there's actually a little bit of it's not an outcropping of ledge because it doesn't come out of the ground, but ledge comes up to probably, or hard pan comes up to like 2.5 feet below the ground. So you can see we're not continuing our septic system through here. Generally speaking, the soils up here are a little more restrictive. And over here in this entire area and all the way down, groundwater was down pretty deep. There was no hard pan. Seasonal high in some cases was down like 3.5 feet, 4.5 feet, something like that. And we designed our septic system based upon the most restrictive results that we got. So it's actually a very conservative design, but it does vary. It seemed like was a little more restrictive up here than it was over here.
Okay. Thanks. Another question is, did you folks, and I apologize, I haven't looked at the hydrologic study. Did you develop a sub-watershed map for pre-development and post-development?
Yes, in fact, that was an interesting conversation that we had with the town engineer. And what we had first talked about was the fact that we really don't need to detain anything, because if you think about it, we've got a massive river coming down here with thousands CFS. And, you know, if we increase a little bit, you know, a few CFS, it's not going to impact the system. And he agreed with that. But what he said, he was worried about creating erosion problems if we didn't detain the peak. So essentially, we've matched our 210, 25, and 100-year Martin, probably within about 5%, all just barely below existing, which is great because as George had said, we're basically mimicking to the maximum extent practical existing conditions.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple questions for George. I noticed when I was out there that the elevation of the side channel, the surface water elevation of the side channel, didn't seem to be that far below the lower portion of that open field. And I know that disturbed agricultural soils are problematic and can be difficult to delineate. And I also know that floodplain soils can be a little bit elusive. And I was wondering what your observations were in that field, and just to confirm that there weren't any floodplain soils located in that lower field area, or if there were they maybe destroyed by the agricultural activity, and basically what your observations in there in terms of soil.
Probably a little bit of both, I would say. Yeah, I think the past agricultural activities have probably masked the pre-existing characteristics of a floodplain soil. But on the other hand, the edge of the field with that little berm that I talked about, that's there as like a little whoop-de-doot, and then you go down, is far enough from the main channel, so that it doesn't seem that the influence of the rivers goes, from a wetlands soil perspective, goes into the field. Another thing that, just to disclosure, someone else had also done a delineation here before, and I had to redo it completely. So I was scrutinizing it along the way because I wanted to disagree. I usually, when I do reviews of wetland delineations, I put my critical hat on, and I couldn't, maybe with a slight exception of the far north. My delineation is very much similar to what had been done before, and it's a lot has to do with the agricultural activities and how that's created an edge in itself.
Okay, thank you. You had said that that wet meadow in the northern end of the field might be an opportunity for enhancement or mitigation. Has there been any further exploration of that as part of maybe this application?
So the wet meadow is in fairly good shape. It could be enhanced with additional species, say like New York ironweed, and eradication of some of the invasives. There's not a lot. I would even take, maybe get rid of the goldenrod because it tends to push other things out. But yeah, we haven't done a specific plan, but I could, between now and the July meeting, I could talk to Banesh's landscape architect and see if we can come up with a plan. I know he has a plan. I just haven't communicated with him on that. I also know that there is residents of Madison that are very interested to do something with regards to pollinator species. So
George, if I can interject, so we're actually talking with the high school to do and the land trust people to do a kind of teaching experience with the volunteers. We recently did one up here in North Madison around Cones Pond, a good half-acre size pollinator garden. So we're hoping with John Cupton do something similar up here. I mean, and we want to make it a teaching experience with the kids. There was one done at the high school recently. So we like to take that and, expand on that opportunity and, make it an educational experience for them.
That's awesome. I have two programmatic questions in terms of the school operations. Maybe Graham, you're the best guy to answer those. And one is there, green building designs in and around water usage and water use minimization? I know we're down to 7,200 gallons per day. I know that there have been some really neat and interesting designs for schools in the past and other green buildings that, reuse, recycle, or reuse rainwater, or, water discharge minimization programming. Is that part of the school design? Can we get that 7,200 down at all, or have we already worked on that?
I mean, it's going to be a quote unquote green school. We're not going to get a LEED gold certification necessarily. We're trying to make it as green as possible. As you mentioned, the geothermal system, we're trying to make this come close, if not a net zero building. We're going to get as close as we can with it prior to putting the solar in there.
Mhm.
So that's one of the reasons we're using the geothermal system. I mean, we're going to be using high performance, low flow fixtures and, not to the point of, zero flow urinals and things like that, but we're going to try make it, I'm sure will be a fraction of that 7,200 gallons. That's very conservative. I
Yeah,
think schools you see in reality will probably be a fraction of that. I think, the high school, when we designed the high school 25, 30 years ago, the projected flows were probably double what we actually saw.
okay.
And Mark,
So-
let me,
so- yeah.
let me just jump in for a second, Graham. That 7,200 is based upon Connecticut DPH. That's the design data, meaning like the peak, which is typically 2 or 3 times. And those things, those numbers have been around forever. That doesn't take into account all the low flow fixtures that Graham and the architects are using. So in reality, the actual daily flow will probably be less than half that 7,200.
Okay, good. Thank you for that clarification. Lastly, in and around maintenance and custodial services, cleaning products, wax floor applications and floor buffing and polishing chemicals that are typically used in schools. Is anyone taking a look at using green products for school maintenance and making that part of the program permanently?
It is already a part of our program.
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
And the school, as I may also, Bill will tell you, we also have restrictions on what we can use, on the state level in terms of pesticides and herbicides.
And use any.
Yeah.
We use none.
None, yeah.
We use none. All our facilities are on septic systems that go into the groundwater. And over the years, and it's not just this year or last year, it's probably over the last 10 years, we've significantly reduced and eliminated, stripping is not part of the practice anymore. The floors have changed. The old way that used to strip all the wax off and then put it all back on, that's not how we do business anymore. It's just not the way it works. It's green. And we have a whole program that, is on the website about our green products. I'm happy to get
Excellent.
into it in detail if you're interested, but I think the bottom line is, we don't use those harsh chemicals anymore.
Good. I think it'd be nice to have that on the record. Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Anybody else on the commission with questions before we put the public in public hearing?
I did have one really quick question for George. When you were out there, I was just curious if you had identified any potential vernal pools during your delineation.
Correct. No, I did not. I was curious about that, especially for that wetland that I'm calling the A2, which is the swamp, because it goes out. Now, is it possible that as you leave the site that there might be a little puddle here and there that could be used by amphibians? Absolutely, but I didn't see anything that would be characterized as even a cryptic vernal pool. Where you have, and this is not the kind of environment for the typical vernal pool species. I'm sure you got gray tree frog galore. You got, toads galore. You got probably some peepers in there. Green frogs I did see, so I can speak to that. but I didn't see anything that would qualify as a vernal pool with the obligate species that we would typically.
And I know you briefly touched on the NDDB, and I don't know if I saw it in the PDF. Did you guys run a review?
We did not. And typically we do run a review if we see a hit within, say, a quarter mile or something like that.
Okay.
So there's some down by the salt marshes, obviously. Yeah, but those are on the other side of I-95.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Joe, I think I would just recommend, or at least give an opportunity to Matt Davison, if you have any, I know you will prepare some comments based on tonight's presentation, but was there anything that you needed additional clarification on or comments this evening?
Thanks, Aaron. Again, for the record, Matt Davison, professional soil scientist, professional wetland scientist, certified professional erosion and sediment control, and a Connecticut forester. I also have viewed the site. I viewed the wetlands. I viewed the wetland boundary, and I've reviewed all the materials that have been submitted. But as Aaron said, I wanted to get this presentation, which will assist us in completing a letter. We're hoping to get a letter out later this week to provide ample time to address our questions and comments. And this presentation was very helpful, by the way, so thank you. But while I have the engineer, a couple of quick questions. I noticed a couple of the leach fields were located above in the northwest part of the site where you mentioned a relatively shallow restrictive layer. They were located above the stormwater basin. Is there any concern that that basin would intercept effluent and then discharge it to the level spreader next to the wetland?
No, I mean, we tried to spread out, Matt, the system as much as possible to help dilute that nitrogen. And you can see here, this is probably 200 feet down from here. So I think I have to go back and look at the elevations, but no, we weren't concerned with that. In fact, what we wanted to do was we wanted to get some infiltration happening in these basins as the effluent slowly migrated down below it is what we actually wanted to do.
And then my other question was the level spreader for that basin, that outlets right next to the wetland there. Do you know offhand what storm events that would discharge at? I mean, is that like at a 1 year? Is it at a 10-year?
You mean when water starts flowing out of there?
Yeah.
It will be at the 2 year for sure.
Okay.
At some point, I mean, I could go back if you put that in your report and you want me to, I can tell you exactly. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I suspect the water quality volume is going to be 100% infiltrated. And then at some point between that and the 2 year, we'll see discharge coming out of here and coming out of here.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. That's it for me, Aaron. I'll digest this and I'll speak with Eric and we'll get something on paper. But I appreciate the presentation. It's very helpful.
Thanks.
This is a question kind of to follow up on that. Will, is that detention basin in that parking area a wet bottom? In other words, does it intersect groundwater?
No,
Okay.
that's above groundwater. Yeah.
It is, okay.
It's
So then
specifically designed to be above groundwater. Yep.
okay. Thank you.
It sounds like the commission and Matt have asked all their questions for tonight, Aaron. So does it look like we have a lot of people out there?
I don't believe we have a lot of folks from the public. I anticipate most of them would be at our Planning and Zoning Commission hearing for matters related more to their jurisdiction. But yes, we can open it up if anybody is interested in making comments from the public, either for or against the application. Please just raise your hand and we will enable you to speak.
Okay, so I guess we're just gonna
I don't
take
see any.
people's, okay, there are none. Okay, so at this time, this is last call for anyone in the public to have questions or comments for the applicant or to state an opinion with regards to the impact on the wetlands
For this
then-
meeting, at least.
for this meeting.
And
Yes.
then-
I'm sensing there's no commentary out there. So I think at this time, if the commission's comfortable, I'd like to entertain a motion to continue. Now, Aaron, is our meeting July 3rd or the 10th?
No, we wouldn't do that to you. We did postpone it to the 10th. We
Okay,
figured
so
we'd
that
have
is 35
limited
days away.
attendance.
So, so if I can entertain a motion from one of my great commissioners to continue this hearing to July 10th.
Make a motion to continue.
Thanks, Martin.
Mhm.
Do we have a second? I see Lee. Lee raised his hand. So Martin made a motion to continue the hearing to July 10th, seconded by Lee. All in favor? By show of hands. And that makes 4 of us. So 4-0. Thank you to everyone who came to the meeting tonight. I look forward to Matt's questions and opinions for the next hearing date next month.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Graham, for the team.
Thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And most of the team, Mr. Vice Chair, is here as well for the Green Hill Road application next, which is not a public hearing, but that is the water main extension that both Will and George mentioned in the earlier hearing, is to extend the water service to the elementary school site, which does include a crossing of the Neck River.
Yep.
Will.
Okay, so
walk
moving
us
on
through
to the regular meeting, item 3, which is application 23-33, as described by Aaron. Now, did this come up at the site walk where you knew you had to make this not part of the big application? This,
Well, so it's a separate property, separate area. So
Okay.
it was my recommendation that we separate those two applications so that.
oh, okay, this has nothing to
Considered
do with the
separately.
school.
What's
This
that?
is This is nothing to do with the school.
Well, it does. It's serving water, but it's on Green Hill Road. It's not on the same property.
Understood. Okay. Okay, so who's here to start presenting for us? Okay, Will.
Okay,
You're on.
thank you very much. Again, for the record, Will Walter, professional engineer. Let me share my screen, and this will certainly not be as long as the last one. Okay, here's our site. Currently, there's water available up here, and we're basically extending the main all the way down Green Hill and all the way down Mungertown. Now, right here, there's a bridge crossing. All right. And so if you can imagine, the water pipe is going to be 4.5, 5 feet deep, buried under the road, and then there's a bridge structure. So we can't just simply maintain that 4.5 feet of cover. So what we like to do is pop out of the side, attach the pipe to the side of the bridge, get on the other side of the bridge, and go back and go deep underneath the road. Unfortunately, in this case, we had no record of the structural stability or the rebar or the parapet of that bridge. And to simply attach a 12-inch ductile iron water pipe filled with water on the side, our structural engineers just couldn't sign off on that and guarantee that it wasn't going to cause some kind of problem. So what we're doing is, now let me bring this other one over. This is the bridge. You can see the abutment here on the north side and the abutment on the south side. And the green is the wetlands that George delineated. Okay. What we have to do is, and I'm zooming right in on this, we're coming underneath the road with the water. Before the bridge, we pop out of the side And then we have a concrete pier on this side of the bridge and on this side of the bridge. And we span with our water pipe. So we're not attaching it to the parapet. So basically we have to put a concrete pier, which is, whatever it is, 8 inches by 8 inches, 8 inches by 8 inches on either side. And so there's very little disturbance, and the disturbance is completely out of the wetlands on both sides. And the water pipe is overhanging. So the water pipe's not going through the wetlands. So there's, again, not 1 square foot disturbance of wetlands, but we are doing a very minimal amount of disturbance in the upland review area. And that's why we're here, obviously. And that's why this is not a public hearing, and Aaron's determined that, this is not qualified for a public hearing. So again, I don't want to say it's a simple design because it's not simple from a structural and a water point of view, but in terms of, construction in the upland review area, it's very, very minimal.
Will, can I ask you, this drawing where you have the green line, that was one of my questions. Your erosion controls are shown on the wetlands side. Is that it? And it was hard to see where the delineation was on this plan.
Yeah.
Are the
I
erosion
noticed-
controls upland of the wetland, or are they within the wetland?
No, I noticed that as well, Aaron, and we mistakenly placed them on the wetland side. We can certainly pull them up here. And
Okay.
we will do that. We'll get them out of the wetlands.
So, and as far as excavation, how far down is there a need when you're excavating to dewater at all during that? Can you kind of walk us through what the construction, the sequence is, so that we kind of understand what that looks like?
Yep. So the first thing they'll do is they'll set their silt fence and hay bales, and I've got a row of each just to be safe. Here, we'll pull this up so it's right down here, and then they're going to have to sit off to the side, possibly sit on the road, and then excavate. And I believe they're going to go down below frost, which is 3.5 feet. So they're going to have to go down below that. If watering is required, then watering will be provided, and we'll provide a dewatering, hay bale dewatering station, so that whatever is dewatered will get pumped out to like here, or possibly out to here, and they'll be surrounded with hay bales. So whatever gets pumped out will get filtered before it flows back into the wetlands.
Okay. And I think this might be my last question. Has the water company approved this plan as the design? They've
Yes.
reviewed
Yes.
this?
Yep.
Okay.
The full design is approved by Connecticut Water Company.
Okay, good. Does the agency have any questions about this proposal?
No,
How big is the water line currently there? Or is this a brand new water line going right to the school?
This is a brand new water line, half-mile brand new water line, 12-inch diameter.
And are the public homes going to be attached, or is this just for the school?
Well, they certainly could be. I mean, it's not the school's responsibility to attach every hookup, but absolutely
I
will be
understand.
available for anybody along there.
Okay, yep. And the only impact to the ground are the mounts.
That's
The
correct.
abutments.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Anybody else? Okay, sensing no questions.
I did have a draft resolution
Oh,
for
yes,
your
you did.
consideration.
They came kind of late in the day. I didn't get to print them.
I'm kidding. Sorry about that. It was one of those days.
No, I get it.
Okay. I can screen share that for you. So you did answer my questions, Will, just in my staff report. I guess the only other question, and if George is here, if he had any recommendations or comments regarding ENS controls or any temporary measures to be handled. Since you were out there, you were the one who delineated that wetland line.
That is correct. I was. I mean, there's some vegetation that's going to have to be cleared back in that area. So to the extent that, you know, it's stabilized with typical things that we do is, you know, put some seed down, make sure that it takes and stabilizes those areas. Whatever disturbance happens in that, because it is slightly slopey. But other than that, I don't see anything else that I would recommend.
Okay, thank you. So that being said,
I see the conditions. Number one's pretty standard, 48
both
hours
of them are.
notice. Yep. And then number two,
It's just maintaining ENS controls. That's another standard condition that we typically attach to all of our applications. And then I guess the third that I would recommend is just that the applicant submit the revised site plan showing that the ENS controls are located outside, you know, upland of the inland wetland delineation.
I feel comfortable going to a vote tonight per the draft resolution that Aaron wrote and is showing us right now with the three conditions. Does the commission feel comfortable to entertain a motion to approve application 23-33?
Yes.
Okay, Martin,
Speaking for
that was your
myself.
motion. So Martin made a motion to approve application 23-33 with the three conditions in the draft resolution written by Aaron, and she's showing us right now. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a second from Anna. Okay, so at this time, all in favor of this application going forward? Show of hands. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I see Lee. All right, this application is approved. Thank you, Will.
Okay.
Thank you very
George.
much. Good night, everybody.
Good
Thank
night. Thank
See you
you.
next month.
See you next month.
Okay, we're gonna slide on down to number 4. It's application 23-35. It's Opening Hill Road. Applicant is A.G. Rowley Trust, et al.'s care of George Gould. The applicant is Anderson Engineering, and this is a 3-lot subdivision referral, which I found out excellently a couple months ago is an actual application. And we did have a site walk there. It was very informative. There are 2 wetlands on the property, and I believe our Todd is here. He's going to describe this proposal or this referral and the proposal. How are you, Todd?
Good evening, everyone. For the record, Todd Anderson from Anderson Engineering Surveying Associates, 1054 Boston Post Road in Guilford. And first and foremost, congratulations, Anna, on your new arrival. Hopefully all goes well, and hopefully you can get some sleep sometime soon. I know how difficult it is having a newborn. I've had 3, so I'm right there with you. Been many years, but right there with you. So
Thank you
good
very
luck to you and congratulations.
Thank you.
So I'm here on behalf of the A.G. Rowley Trust. Specifically, Roger Gould is my client. We are intending to subdivide a 5.7 acre piece of property on Opening Hill Road. We have done a first split as of right on the rear portion of the property. So it is four parcels that we are creating. But before you tonight is a subdivision of 3 parcels. So you guys walked, well, some of you walked the entire site and saw the 2 wetland areas. One of them is on that first split parcel A parcel. But in consideration of your subdivision purview and referral, that area does play into consideration of your approval of the 3-lot subdivision, because the 100-foot review zone of that other wetland that is on that parcel A first split property does affect and come into the subdivision area. There is a small depression in the middle of their land that is a potential vernal pool. Rich Snarski, who marked the wetlands, was out there I think 3 or 4 times. Aaron had later on, Aaron will share the letter to you from Rich. I think he was out there 3 or 4 times, once last year and at least 2 or 3 times this year, checking on that vernal pool to see whether there was any obligate species in that pool. He did not find any. On the wetlands walk, one of the commission members did find tadpoles for wood frogs in that pool. It was extremely small at the time, but there were tadpoles. So we're trying to protect that as much as possible, in the event that any obligate species may or will in the future inhabit that pool, which Rich says does not hold water very long because of the porosity of the soil underneath it. We have very good soils in that area. As you can see from the test pit results, we have beautiful sand and gravel. We have less than 5-minute perk rates throughout the site. And that pool basically happens because it's a low area. It's got a leaf mass on the surface that holds water, but it doesn't hold water. From what Rich said, it doesn't hold water long enough for the obligate species to be attracted to it. There are other vernal pools. About a quarter-mile north is a subdivision that we did many years ago that has a pristine vernal pool that has obligate species in it. And that one holds water for a very long period of time. And that one, when we designed that subdivision, we protected that one immensely. But this one seems to drain out more quickly than the other one. So in designing this site, we tried to keep the driveways and all the construction the furthest distance away from the wetlands as possible. And this is pretty much what we're presenting to you tonight, is the best case scenario of keeping the furthest distance away from the wetlands and protecting the natural drainage patterns of the land. And every lot fits the zoning regulations. And again, the driveway to lot 2, we designed that to go up in between the 2 100-foot setbacks for review of wetlands. And we are encroaching within your 100-foot review zones as minimal as possible to create three building sites on this land. Lot 1 is not anywhere near your 100-foot review. So lots 2 and 3, we have minimal impact on your reviews on your review zone. The house on lot 2 is outside of the 100-foot review. We have grading within the 100-foot review. Lot 3, we have the driveway and associated grading within your 100-foot review, but all septics and houses are with, outside of your 100-foot review. So basically what you're looking at is just driveway and grading within your 100-foot review zone. So we feel it's the minimal amount of impact on the wetlands as was marked out. And it's the best way to develop the property that fits zoning. And I hope for your approval. So I'm open for any questions.
Obviously, like we always say, each lot potentially could, well, lots 3 and 2 potentially will be back in front of us. But
Oh, those two will absolutely have to be back in front of you.
okay,
These are theoretical locations, and we placed houses in our recommendations of where we feel we could build a house. But of course, that when somebody buys the lot, they come back in with something different. So yes, lots
Yep.
2 and 3 will absolutely be back before you. Lot 1 is outside of the 100-foot review. That one you will not see again.
mhm. So I know Lee was on the site walk with Aaron and Kia and myself. So just wanted to tell Anna and Martin that first wetland there where it says soil class 3, very shallow. There was just a little puddle dead center, and Kia jumped right in there and found some tadpoles. And
Yes.
the wetland under parcel A could be spring fed because there was some rippling going on and movement, but that was unconfirmed. So just, and also very, very shallow. I just wanted to visually describe what they looked like.
And Todd, can you speak to the open space requirement for the subdivision? I assume as there isn't a dedicated open space area, the applicant is proposing a fee in lieu?
Yes, when we go before planning and zoning, we are proposing a fee in lieu of, because we do not have the area required for an open space. So we will be coming up with a amount with planning and zoning for the fee in lieu of open space.
And I have, and I can share, did you see that switch?
Yes.
Okay, good. This is Rich Snarski's letter, and I apologize that that was not attached to the agenda. That was just a administrative error on my end. But yes, as Rich Snarski indicated, he was out to the site 4 times and for the initial delineation on December 7th, 2021, and then again on March 31st, April 5th, and April 7th, 2023. I don't, happy to read it out loud, but I don't think I need to.
No.
As
I
long as
found
you can all see it.
tadpoles, and he didn't see anything.
What was the date of our site walk when Kayla found the tadpoles? May 15th?
May
It was May.
13th,
May 13th.
Okay.
a little later.
And so it looks like there are a couple of trees near the pool. Is it mostly open around that area?
Oh, it was wooded with some fallen trees across each wetland area. Or definitely
Okay.
the first one, there was fallen trees, and I think I asked at the walk that there's no intent to remove the fallen trees.
Mm-hmm.
It was
The
pretty
one-
wooded. I mean, the whole site was wooded. And so, and as you know, clearing as far is, this application is not for any regulated activity. This is just the subdivision referral, which is required by statute. So you can send comments and report for the Planning and Zoning Commission to consider. And then activities within 100 feet would be regulated by you. And as Todd indicated, those would include lots 2 and 3, and separately, likely also that parcel A, which was the first split off of this mother lot prior to the subdivision.
Yes, parcel A will definitely be before you because the driveway that leads up to that parcel A is definitely going to need an application to you for regulated activity. Because that is absolutely within the 100-foot review.
My thoughts around this is like future yards, that expand and clearing occurs and that sort of thing. And I think that the planning commission might want to consider that if people agree. I don't know what other thoughts are, but I would imagine that maybe a conservation easement or some kind of clearing limits, be imposed on the future development in and around that wetland resource, such as it is.
And again, both of these lots and parcel A are going to be back before you for development of each respective lot. And at that point, you would be able to control distances to clearing, grading, and such forth. Right now, we are just dealing with the subdivision referral to get these lots deemed buildable.
I have to admit, based on the way the conceptual build out looks, it's really a hard layout, Martin, to even get a contiguous conservation easement. And so I think our upland review areas are kind of de facto conservation easements.
Mm-hmm.
But if
Okay.
there's,
I think
there's
you
no
can,
more,
you could say, a little more generalized statement is that, the such as the agency, acknowledges the sensitivity of the wetland, and force, future site development would encourage, significant vegetated buffer to that, or clear delineation of lawn area, outside. It's hard to say outside the 100-foot because the 100-foot line literally comes up to just behind the building on lot 3. But yeah, and those, including language like that is fine in the report, as well as language that indicates that site development of parcels 2 and 3 would require regulated permit activities. The agency as a whole, you could recommend conservation easements, but again, you'd all have to kind of agree on what you're
yep.
looking to set aside.
And like Joe said, it's maybe that's more development project specific versus, yeah, I get that. Thank you.
But having at least some general comments in your report to
Mhm.
anticipate that these, at least acknowledge that these were concerns at the time of reviewing the subdivision, that's fine. You can
I
do
think
it.
it's important to go on the record that way. That way, future owners understand that there's going to be some haggling, if you will, some
Planning and
people.
zoning, yeah, planning and zoning, they're gonna be more looking at the impact on the roads and the neighborhood, more so the environment. So when we send a referral letter through Aaron, we'll just kind of open their eyes a little bit on what's inside the lines. So,
Sounds good.
so I definitely walked away from that site walk pretty confident that the design is not going to impact the wetlands that greatly, especially since we get another bite at a couple apples.
Sounds good.
So
I have already told the prospective future buyer of these lots that he's going to have a hurdle to go over with you guys on lots 2 and 3. That we need to pretty much adhere to what I have shown on my plans. That if we go back in with you guys with something as shown to be much more than what I show on these plans, that you guys are going to give him a lot of pushback. So he is on board with what I'm showing, and he's not going to come back in with something showing him grading the backyard to within 20 feet of the wetlands. I've already told him, no, you get what you get upset and deal with it. So what I've shown on these plans is pretty much along the lines of what I have told him that he's going to have to constrain to.
So you're roughly what you drew, Todd, is as far as the silt fence line is your limit of clearing?
Yes.
So I did provide some staff comments, a draft resolution with one comment to include that I can screen share. And if you'd like to add a second or modify the one I have, that's and my notes again, these are, the properties are being accessed by 3 separate driveways as shown on the site development plan. Parcel A and lot 2 will share a drive, and all 3 parcels will be serviced by private wells and sewage disposal systems. And although this looks like it goes on 2 pages, it's just 1 page. So my apologies, Martin, for confusing you.
No problem. No problem. I
Email.
appreciate everything you do. Thank you.
So again, my comment was that the applicant shall return to the agency for regulated activity permits for lots 2 and 3 prior to any site disturbance. And if you wanted to provide additional comments regarding the values of that centralized
what's below
wetland
number
system.
1? What's on page 2?
Nothing yet. Whatever
Oh,
you'd
okay.
like to add.
Placeholder. It's a placeholder.
Since I'm
It
thinking
was
we're
a
gonna
rough Monday.
For
since I'm
everybody.
thinking we're gonna approve this, I'll say number 2 could write that the agency sees the concept appearing to ensure the protection of the wetlands. And I would say we should also write that we will be encouraging low impact development on the properties.
Nice.
Could we also include that we are encouraging maybe just another look at that wetland on next to soil class 3, just to make sure that there aren't any vernal pool species at that time as well.
So Anna, I forgot, is vernal pool like March through June?
Yeah, about this year. It was early this year. I think it started in early March, maybe mid-March, and it was done in like maybe late May, even early May. But it's kind of surprising that it wasn't that no eggs were identified in April because our season started so early this year. So that's kind of surprising.
So okay, so we'll just remember if there's activity even within 50 feet of that area, we'll make that an area of super ramped up ENS controls.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So if there's no more comments on application 23-35, can I entertain a motion to approve the application and sending this referral resolution to the commission? Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
All right, Anna has just moved that the agency approve application 23-35. A second,
Second,
Martin has seconded. All in favor, show of hands. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, it's 4-0, Aaron.
Hmm.
On to the commission with that one.
Thank
Okay.
you so much, everyone.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
Have a great night.
You too.
So
See you
Thank you.
soon.
now the next two nope. We got 53 Cops Road, application 23-36.
They've been waiting
applicants.
patiently. Don't skip them.
The applicants are Karen and Kelly Doherty. Regulated activity permit to demolish an existing barn and install a pre-built 576 square foot garage within 100-foot upland review area. And this was also the subject property of a site walk back in May. There were some alarms that went off with Kia. So we're going to hear about that. And are the applicants are here? Oh, I see not
Yes,
Kelly
it's
Doherty.
Karen.
That's Karen. Okay.
And
there
Kelly.
she is. Would you guys like to present your proposal?
Yes. Sorry, very, very new to this process. Never done this before. Again, we're proposing to build a 576 square foot detached garage, demo an existing barn. Aaron's been great. Everyone in the town's been great. We have no idea what we're doing with this whole thing. So, got our survey done, got our wetlands delineation done. You guys did your site walk. From what we've talked to Aaron and to Rich Snarski, our soil scientist, Todd Anderson, who did our site work, our builder, pretty straightforward. Our you guys did the site walk. There's not a lot going on, but again, we're very new to this. We bought our house 9 years ago, and we're just trying to put a garage in.
Kieran, I can share your survey, your
Please do. Thank
plan,
you.
and then we can kind of walk through it and
Yep.
talk through any of the feedback from, viewing this on the site walk.
Yes, thank you.
See that now?
So you can see our existing house, our driveway, where the proposed garage will be, just north of the driveway, about 4 feet off the existing driveway. The existing barn in the back will be demolished. Certainly within the setbacks, obviously within proximity to the wetlands. So that's why we're in front of you guys tonight. Again, I'm just a homeowner. I'm not a builder. I'm not a engineer. You guys came out and did a site walk, so we're just looking to hopefully get approval for this pretty straightforward proposal right off our driveway where the barn or the garage is going to be built. No grading is going to need to be done. It's basically going to be a slab on grade right off our existing driveway. The barn in the back that's going to be removed. The Anderson brothers, it's 1,300 square foot. The barn is going to be removed. The garage is 576 square feet. So, much smaller structure that we're proposing. Anderson brothers, that's going to do the demo on the barn. There's no grading going to need to be done. They're saying 10 to 12 cubic yards of just topsoil to basically make that area grass, which right up to the barn and behind the barn is existing grass. So not a lot of site work that's going to need to be done. I know, and you guys came out and did a site walk. There was a couple of questions on some areas. So I'd love to hear the committee's feedback and questions. Again, not very complex compared to some of the
Yeah.
other
Some of the
projects you guys have
questions,
discussed.
I guess, Kieran, and I know you guys were away, so thank you for letting us just come and look.
Oh,
at
absolutely. Yeah.
And Joe, you were here, and Lee, actually. So one of the questions, there were multiple stakes or markers in the field that seemed confusing. We figured out where the clearly where the garage was.
Well,
There
so
was-
unfortunately, yeah. So our the concrete contractor used the same color flags as the wetlands contractor, so they're all pink. So that might have caused some confusion.
The front, yeah, the front is what you saw here in the front of the property.
Oh, and that, yes, yeah.
On the
So that was
south
our
side of the
septic.
driveway was septic, right?
Again, we're new to this, and I knew roughly where our septic was, but I had somebody come out and stake our septic because I wasn't sure where our leaching fields were. So we had that staked out to make sure that it was, significantly away, that the garage was significantly away from where the septic was.
And there's two adjacent water courses, one on the north side of the property that kind of circles around the back into a wetland system. And there's a pond on the south adjacent property and this fringe wetland, which I think some of us were surprised to see extend as far as it does into the existing lawn area.
As were we.
Right. So
there used to be a trampoline there that my kids jumped on, which I obviously wouldn't have put there if I knew it was wetlands.
So one of the other questions in looking at this is vegetated in this area. I think you have a little concrete landing.
Yeah, just south of the barn. Yeah.
And then south of the barn is existing vegetation. And again, you do have existing lawn in this area and then existing vegetation as a buffer to that wetland system. And so the question was raised, are you proposing to remove any of that vegetation, or are you going to just leave this existing line and really just convert the area, the footprint of the barn to lawn?
Absolutely, yeah. Just the footprint of the barn will be lawn. I'm not looking to have to mow any more grass. So what is there will be there. Just we're gonna remove the barn and just make that grass. But no, what's all that vegetation that's already there, we're gonna keep there.
Okay.
I'll just share with Martin and Anna. From the front, the barn looks amazing, and the big question is, why does demolition have to take place? That's an activity, but then when you get behind, you see the big holes, the big hole in the roof, and then the back of the barn, the bottom is all rotted out. So it looks like its life has come to an end.
Yeah. So Joe. So our house, the original part of our house was built in 1900. The barn might be significantly older than that. I don't know for sure. I've had multiple people, including Peter Gulick, come out and look at the barn because I honestly I would hate to see it just thrown in a landfill. It obviously has some history and some value. And I had a few other like reclaimed lumber people come out and look at it. And unfortunately, it's just rotted out. It's well past any usable state. Because I'm like, even the siding, somebody could use that to like, make a cool bar or like, do something with it. But it's well past its usable point. I again hate to knock it down, but it's it has become almost. And I have two young daughters. It's almost become kind of a safety hazard at this point.
Yeah. Not wetland related, but you're going to keep that big thing that's on top. Can't remember.
Well, so I was talking to Aaron. Funny enough, so the new
weather vane
garage we're building, we're going to have a cupola. We have a black lab. We're going to have a black lab weather vane on top. The weather vane that's on the existing barn, our neighbor Allison Becker to our north, her late husband, put that on her barn. We're going to take that off and give that back to her.
Very nice. Okay.
That's a special
Was
piece right there
was
for
it a
sure.
dog?
It is. It's. I think it's actually. No, I think it's a pointer. I think that's
Okay.
up there. Yeah.
Yep.
But that was one of their old dogs.
Okay.
So yeah. No, we're gonna give that back to Allison.
All right. So, Aaron, that wetland to the south, was that on the original site plan? Like
Yes.
delineated?
Yes,
Okay.
this is the plan that was received with the application. So yes, this was available prior to the walk.
Okay. I just
And-
didn't
and-
remember if we needed them to go restake that area, but
No, it
good.
is flagged
That's
in the
been staked,
field,
yep.
which was what caused the
Yes.
question.
That's right. Okay.
And the silt fence is shown, as you see, and that would serve, my understanding, Kieran, is the limit of disturbance. You're not anticipating a lot of stockpiling.
The existing
Material.
barn, Anderson Brothers are doing the demolition. They will have that gone within 7 to 8 hours. It's all gonna be removed in dumpsters, gone. There'd be, and again, we're gonna 10 to 12 cubic yards of topsoil just to replace where the barn is and make it grass.
Are there any other questions from the commission?
I just want to say that I didn't make the site walk, but I did do a drive-by of this property, and I did take a really good look at the aerial view, and it looks like, shoot, that the wetlands are fairly well disturbed as a result of, 100 years past residential development. And there are two houses that are right adjacent to this property too. I'm not seeing any real significant, value associated with these wetlands on these residential properties. And it looks, pretty straightforward to me. I think it's a nice plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barton.
We did see a woodchuck when we arrived that day.
Oh,
They are
the woodchucks. We
benefited
love the
by-
woodchucks. So we had a tiny little shed that we took down, and he left that, and then he's put himself into the barn. So I'm sad to but hopefully he'll find up maybe the new garage. He can find a little spot and
He'll make his way to your garage.
yeah.
He's gonna be inside our home.
Yeah, or he'll be like in our basement probably.
So,
Any other questions or comments, gang?
no,
Yeah, just really quick. I just want to reconfirm, and I apologize if I missed this earlier. The existing barn is larger than the proposed garage, right?
Significantly, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
It's the existing barn's about 1,300 square feet. The proposed garage will be is 576 square feet.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll be recouping that lawn area. Okay.
Yes. More grass for me to have to mow.
mhm.
The spot for the
That's
trampoline.
No, the trampoline was thrown in a dumpster. That's already gone. That's an insurance nightmare.
That's true.
Okay, so I'm sensing the commission is finished with their questions and comments. And I don't think this has a resolution.
Yes, and this is, for those of you who know Maria Patola, our land use technician, this is her first staff report for you. So,
Nicely
We
done.
love Maria. She's awesome.
lovely job.
We walked into the office. I'm like, we want to build a garage. I have no idea what we're doing. Can you walk us through how this works? And she's been fantastic. So and Aaron as well. Thank you so much for all your guidance.
Sure.
We're very, very much newbies to this process.
Okay, I
We
see
get that a lot
standard
in the wetlands.
conditions. Okay, we have 3 standard conditions.
Yep, the first 2 are standard. The third is that the existing limits of lawn are not being expanded without further approval. And that was just that note that we're not removing additional vegetation.
Nope.
Because that does serve as some buffer at least to the existing wetlands.
Okay,
Awesome.
so can I entertain a motion to approve application 23-36 as presented with the draft resolution as our conditional attachment?
Yes, you may.
Okay, I think Martin just made a motion. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second that.
I see Anna with her hand and her voice. So approved and I mean motioned and seconded. All in favor of application 20-36 as proposed? And that's 4-0, Aaron. Congratulations to the
Thanks,
Dohertys.
guys.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Nice
Aaron,
job,
I'll
guys.
email you tomorrow because I have no idea what I'm supposed to do next, so.
What did you do
You
next?
got it. We'll send you an approval letter.
Awesome.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much.
Have
You're
a good
welcome.
one.
Take
Thank you for
care.
everything you guys do. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
Sure.
Good luck, guys.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Now we got to build the thing.
Where do we get a building permit?
Talk to Aaron
Oh,
about that.
Maria, she'll walk you through it.
Thank you.
Got to get a zoning permit first.
No, I know. Yeah. Thank you,
That's
guys.
right.
Thanks so much.
Have a good
All right,
evening.
you're welcome.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so items 6 and 7 are continued without discussion. So I think we got to go one by one and make motions to continue, starting with application 23-20. I'll just make a motion to continue the application for 730 Durham Road to our July 10th meeting. Can I have a second? Lee. Lee has raised his hand, has seconded it. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4-0. 730 Durham Road, July 10th. And that was for the restoration of a pond. That was a site walk, and we'll hear more about that one later.
Yes, they're waiting for so their wetland reports. They anticipate that for next month.
Okay, yep. And then.
And Fort Path. Yeah, I'm sorry, Joe, if you want to
No,
introduce
it's
it.
okay. Application 23-12, that sounds like it's an oldie but a goodie. Milano, okay, yes, Milano Development needed more time because they had a lot of stuff to do on a new site plan with regards to as-built and where the water's going. So I'll make a motion to continue that application to July 10th. Do I have a second? Yes, we do, on the upper right square. Lee, and all in favor? Martin, Anna, me, Lee. That's 4-0, Aaron. Milano's to July 10th. Okay. Now we're going to receipts of new applications, such as application 23-39 Longshore Lane.
Yes,
Willie Fogel.
this is an
What do we have?
application
Yep.
that is includes both a title component and an inland wetland component. So there's a coastal site plan pending with the Planning and Zoning Commission as well. This application came in assuming a significant activity because there is a direct impact to the inland wetlands, roughly 232 square feet, in working with the engineer, the design engineer on this application. And so if the commission is in agreement, we could go ahead and schedule that public hearing for the July meeting. And I would assume that you would like to walk this site to see the specific area in question for this access way. And I guess the last question would be if you felt there was a need for a third-party review, or if you think that's something that you can consider yourselves and not require any expert.
So without knowing a lot of details, how will we know if we need an engineer on our side?
So ultimately, I mean, the access way is it's not a permanent. I shouldn't say not permanent. I'm thinking material wise. Let me give you a little more
So
information.
what exactly needs restoration? Like what's disturbed and how did it get disturbed?
I can actually let John Paul come over, the engineer, and he can give you a brief overview so that you understand.
He's here.
He is. He's been very
Okay.
patiently waiting. So I'll
Probably
And not really to make a full presentation, especially if, seeing a public hearing for a significant activity, but just to give you that high level understanding of what. Hi, John Paul.
Good evening. For the record, my name is John Paul Garcia. I'm a licensed professional engineer and land surveyor licensed to practice in the state of Connecticut. Principal office at 190 Fairwood Road in the town of Bethany. I'm here representing Lily Fogel and trying to get a small access way to property that she owns on Longshore Lane. If you can share my screen, I've got a Google Earth map that might show you everything that you need to know.
You
for
can.
the time being.
Are you able to hit share screen?
I can hit share screen.
And then, yeah, we can see what you have, just to kind of familiarize the agency with the area.
Can you see my hand on that screen?
Not yet.
How about that one?
No, do you have multiple?
Okay, let me see if that one shows up. How's that one?
No, I don't think you're,
Good.
you're either picking I can actually pull up some information if that's helpful here. Hold on.
Well, the Google Earth map is not in the, that's why it says screen one. And it appears that I've got screen one up.
I don't know why. I can pull it up on our GIS if that's helpful.
Okay. It might save
Just
some
get it
time.
up for you.
Oh, wait a minute. Share. Is
Oh,
that
there you
better?
go. You got it.
Sorry, I'm,
Oh, perfect.
as my daughter says, I'm still a dinosaur. Anyways, the property is south of Route 1. This is the beach club, and our property is in here. 78 Longshore Lane is an in-holding owned by somebody else. This property was the subject of numerous applications for a 6-lot subdivision in the past couple of years. What we're talking about right now is my client owns, she bought the 22 acres. And with the exception of this in-holding, follow my hand, that goes like this, is 78 Longshore Lane. As you can see right here next to this barn, somebody dug out an area, and now we can no longer get across that area to get access to the back of the property. They own this piece in here, and there's no other access to this property. You can't get access from Shorelands. There's no legal access to this property from Shorelands Drive. So the only access to this rear portion of the property is across a strip right here that butts up against the little wetland, which is all through here. Now, 3 or 4 years ago, it would have been a simple matter of just clearing out some brush, and she could have drove right across this. In the interim, somebody came in here and excavated this out. And now we have a problem, and we want to fill it back in and create a 10-foot wide wood chip path that allows her to get mowers and gator type equipment back there, so she can keep up with this area here. And that's basically it. And the site is all staked out. I mean, if somebody wanted to go do a site walk, this barn is very evident. And this barn is very evident, and this property line is staked all the way down, so that there's no way you can actually miss it.
What's the purpose of getting back there?
To maintain this piece of property, you know, trees mowed, clean up the mess. This is all up in the area. This is
Who's
actually,
mowing it now?
No one, because she can't get access to it. This is an older photograph, but the property line is approximately here.
But
And
it
the
looks
on-
like
and the
the
only
whole
way-
place,
The
looks
only way
like
to
the whole
get there is
property is
here.
accessed
You can't
on
get
the
through
east.
here because this is all tidal swamp. You have no access from shorelands. So this is our only access. And that's
What was
just tight, you know, it's right on top of the property line.
What was the purpose of that excavation and who did it? Looks like it's in the wetlands.
Yes, we think it was done by the owner of 78 Longshore Lane, but I have no direct knowledge of that.
So that piece has been split off since
Yes.
then? Or-
What it was originally the subject of a 6-lot subdivision. It was approved, disapproved, approved, and then finally Lily, who lives in this house right here, bought the property, with the exception of 78 Longshore Lane.
Huh.
I
I
don't
think
see
we-
a reason why this has to go to a public hearing.
Well, there might be some direct wetland impacts associated with, reconstructing that path. I mean, we need to know the wetland delineation in there, the wetland character, what happened. It looks like it's a pretty big hole in a wetland area, and I think it should be, looked at.
Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know if it's super significant where it's kicking in a public hearing. We could probably handle it without going that route.
There's as part of the record for this subdivision, there was extensive wetlands delineation and wetlands flagging. Those reports are part of your file already on 78 Longshore Lane subdivision. It's a pretty extensive file.
But as of now, that has not been subdivided.
No, and she has no
Okay.
intention of subdividing. This
I
is
remember-
not for a subdivision. This is
Good.
not
Does the
for a
current-
subdivision.
does the current application package include those wetland delineations and mapping
Yes,
and all that?
we show the mapping, we show the wetlands delineation, the title and uplands.
Hmm.
It's all part of the
Okay.
plan. It's all.
There's- Right, and I think the additional information that's not included, John Paul, would be a wetland report or any kind of environmental assessment of that. And so that
I
would
can
be,
dig that out of your file. That's easy enough to do.
so in looking at this particular proposal, I guess that's for the agency to determine, do you want, if you deem this a potential significant activity or deem it a significant activity that could have potential direct impacts to the wetland, as it is in a wetland, then some additional information as stated in the regulations would be required.
Sure, no problem. Why don't we do the site
associated with
walk
that
and then the
here.
commission can see what's involved and we can make a determination then. We're more than happy to.
I would recommend, Aaron, definitely a site walk, and then at the next meeting, we can determine if it's significant.
Yeah, be more than happy to.
Yep.
Okay, I mean, from a timing perspective, that's fine. That just kind of pushes you out another month for the public hearing.
I understand that, but I'd rather
Yep.
get it done right than fast.
Sure.
That's refreshing.
You have. I do too much. We're doing too many things too fast. Let's get it right.
Yeah, sounds good.
I don't need, Lily needs it done right.
So, okay, so if the agency wants to move in that direction, then, right now on our calendar, we tentatively have, June 17th as our walk date, which we have yet to, finalize with the commission that we have enough members available. Sometimes in the summer, it's a little challenging with vacation schedules and things of that nature. But that's our tentative date. If we need to change that to either, now that it's later out, later in the day, it could be an evening if potentially, if a walk is the way we're going, I can kind of pull our agency and give you a specific date.
Sure.
over
I can
the-
actually make the 17th this time.
I can make it.
I may not be able to.
Okay. Aha.
I will find out. I will
Okay.
find out.
An evening is fine too, for me anyway, so.
I'm hopeful that we can just make this work because it would only be potentially 2 sites to be walking. So
Mhm.
hopefully we can get that done nice and easy.
Okay.
Okay, so if that's the direction, Joe, I would recommend a motion, and then John Paul, I'll let you know what date and time specifically,
Sure.
when we can meet you out there.
Like I said, and if anybody wants to go out there on their own, just let me know, but the site is pretty well, that property line is pretty well flagged up and staked out, so, you can walk this and you can see exactly where we want to put the road. It's, if somebody wants to do it by themselves.
Okay, that's good to know, because we do have some members who aren't here today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now, since the meeting date's already picked, you're asking me to entertain a motion to schedule a site walk?
Yeah, I think if the agency is in agreement that you want a site walk, let's, motion to schedule one. And we'll announce that if it's on our regular meeting date of 6/17, we'll just post the agenda accordingly. If that date isn't going to work, then we'll cancel that meeting or reschedule to a special meeting.
Okay.
And notice that properly.
So I'd like to make a motion that the agency schedules a site walk for Longshore Lane. The topic property for this application 23-39, tentatively scheduled for the already selected date of June 17th, or a site to be determined by Aaron based on the wetland agency litmus test for availability. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thanks, Lee. All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3. Okay, 4-0, Aaron. We're doing a
Okay,
site walk.
and we'll add this for discussion at your next meeting on July 10th as well, that you could further determine if you deem that a significant activity.
Correct.
Thank you
Yep.
very, very much. We really
Okay.
appreciate it. Have a pleasant evening.
Thanks for your patience and for staying on the line for so long, John Paul.
It is what it is. This is
I know.
it's the job.
Thanks, John Paul.
Thank you very much. Have a pleasant evening.
You too,
You
thanks.
too. And now, item number 9, application 23-40, 8 West Wharf Road, the Madison Country Club, looking to put irrigation system in the golf course. What else you got, Aaron?
So the golf course came before you
Years
some time ago, 2017, I believe, for regulated activity for irrigation pond maintenance, dredging. And they are now proposing to replace all of the existing irrigation lines within the golf course, most of which I have met with their designer and a representative for the club. We work to kind of move these lines as far away from the wetlands, both tidal and inland, as possible, as best as we can work. There is an existing wetland crossing near pond number 7 on the golf course, and they're looking to replace that particular line in kind. So there is a water course crossing. Their wetland scientist who was involved with the original pond dredging project did extensive reviews of the property. That was Eric Davison. He's back involved and gave some reports on this proposal. So based on the nature of how you replace irrigation line, I didn't see that as a real significant activity, to be honest. And but I do think it is does warrant a site walk to walk it and see the area, and then at the same time considering the process of how they replace the line.
Okay. So I'll make the motion that
Oh, Joe Lee had his hand raised.
oh, okay. I didn't hear his hand go up. Sorry, Lee. Go ahead.
Oh, now you're muted, Lee. We can't hear you. No, you're not muted. What happened to your speaker or your microphone? I can't hear you.
Nope.
If you go down to your little microphone. Oh, never mind. Okay. No comment,
Okay,
Joe.
He's asking if he can bring his clubs or can he have access to the putting green? That's not wetlands.
Poorly. Okay. So, is anyone in agreement to, walk the site?
Yes,
Lee is a yes.
Anna?
Yep.
Okay, and Martin, he's around?
No,
No,
it's a golf course, what else can I say?
but that's not too far from Longshore, correct?
No, it just lengthens the day a little bit. That's fine. I will go with the commission's recommendation. I just figured I'd voice my opinion.
Thank you for doing that.
Of course.
But since Erin recommended it, I trust her.
Well,
She's
I
awesome.
mean, you can
Okay,
see where
so-
it is from it. It's,
I'm not a golfer.
make-
What can I say? I've
maybe
never
we'll
been
get
seen
to
on a
go on
golf
a
course.
cart. I don't know. We'll give it a
meet at the
shot.
clubhouse.
I'd never be part of any organization that would have me as a member.
I will make a motion that we schedule application 23-40 for the July 10th meeting. And well, first I'll do that one. Do we have a second for scheduling it for July 10th? Lee has said yes. All in favor?
No, June
1,
17th.
2, 3, 4. Okay, we have now scheduled this for July 10th. I would like to make a motion that we schedule this application 2340 for a site walk for June 17th or a date that best fits our staff.
Second,
We have a second from Martin. All in favor?
I
1, 2, 3. Okay, 4-0. Oh boy, Bob Russo's here.
oh boy.
Okay, thanks, Commission, for those approvals.
Thank you.
We now have a red light siren going off. What's happening, Aaron? There's a violation out there.
Well, no, this is an existing, so the agency, you dealt with a corrective action order for 144 Neck Road, where there was a restoration, planting
yes.
proposed, and a condition or a directive placed by the agency for the plantings of 15-foot tall shade trees in the area. And the property owner is requesting a modification of this corrective action order. And Bob has been the one to propose this modification with his professional opinion as to why they're recommending that. So Bob, go ahead, and are you able to share everything, or do you need me to pull
I
it?
can share. Let me just make sure that hold on just a minute. That should be sharing now. Can that be seen by all the
Yes.
commission members?
Yes.
Okay. For the record, my name's Bob Russo, certified soil scientist with CLA Engineers in Norwich, Connecticut. I have previously done the wetland delineation on 144 Neck Road, as well as walked the site with some of the commission members. As the commission recalls, there was a violation there. The applicant, who is also applying to construct a new house, replacing the old house on the site, had cut down a number of trees in the wetland. And this is a request for a modification of the restoration plan. Unfortunately, and I apologize, I wasn't able to be at the commission's meeting in March, I believe, when this was before the commission. And what I'm requesting on behalf of the applicant is there was a provision made for planting 15-foot tall trees, red maples presumably, on the site as compensation for the impacts that occurred. There's no question that the applicant did this, but I don't think that this is a prudent idea, and I'd just like to review the reasons for that. The location where the trees were cut, the red maples were cut, has really organic soil on it that's not particularly able to stabilize a bald tree going in. If you
Bob,
look at the,
should we be seeing a site plan?
I'm just going to show you a couple pictures of what's going on out there. I don't have the site plan up. I'm not going to refer to it.
Okay.
This is only one aspect of the site plan that I wish to talk about, and it's just the 15-foot tall trees. The rest of the site plan, I suggest remain the same, and I would just like to go over the reasons in the text in the letter that I've provided to you. And the only thing we're asking is that those 15-foot tall trees be deleted. Because the soils are so organic out there, the trees naturally grow with a very wide spreading root mat that really doesn't penetrate very deeply. What you're looking at here, and can you see what I'm circling with the pointer right now?
No.
Can you see the picture, photograph number 2?
Oh, we
No,
just see
we're still,
files.
yeah, we're still seeing the list of files, Bob.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The separate
Okay.
the separate screen.
I'm sorry. Hold on just a minute. Let me do this differently. Actually, Aaron, do you have a copy of my letter that you can bring up? I may be just being too clumsy with this.
Sure. Let me get your photos here.
I apologize to the commission. I thought
Oh.
the letter that was up on my screen was also showing on yours.
And now we see a picture.
And then can you scroll down to the next picture, photograph 2? Okay, so this photograph is taken with my back to where the existing house is. And in the center foreground, what you see there is a red maple stump from a wind throw. Wind-thrown red maples are very common in this wetland. The soil is saturated to the surface for much of the year. The root mat spreads out really just widely over the top of the wetland. And because of that, these trees are prone to wind throw. If you try to plant a bald tree in here, that root ball is not going to provide very much stability in this organic soil. The tree is going to be very prone to toppling. The survivability of planting that tall a tree in this type of soil is quite low. Now, while we're on this picture, if you look at that vegetation, the saplings that are growing in the center of the frame that are taller than the Phragmites, those are all red maple suckers that are growing out of the stump. You can see they're already taller than the Phragmites, and this is about a 3-year-old wind throw. My suggestion is that the stumps that are there just be left and be allowed to send suckers up. You can see how well they succeed here. And they're going to grow into quite tall red maple trees within a matter of a couple of years. And because they have the existing root system in the ground, they have a real advantage over any tree that you would plant there. Aaron, can you scroll down to the next picture, please? This is one of the trees that the owner cut. If you look around the base of that tree where the butt swell is large, you see all of these suckers that are just sprouting up this year. So you can see already in this year, they're a foot and a half tall. They'll be 2 or 3 feet taller by the end of the year. In another 2 or 3 years, they'll be 12 to 14 feet tall. Again, this is an existing root system. It's quite common to have good sprouting from red maple stumps in a wetland. In fact, it was practiced for firewood generation, a practice called coppice and standard, where firewood was grown in swamps like this because the red maples readily sprouted back. Aaron, can you scroll back up to the top, the letter, the text itself? So the as I understand it, again, I wasn't at the meeting, one of the concerns was that shade trees would be important on this site in order to shade out Phragmites and discourage its growth. I think that the sprouts that are growing are very soon going to be serving that function. You can see in that 2 to 3 year old wind-thrown tree that was in photograph 2, they're already above the Phragmites, and they get to use the existing root system. Planting trees that are 15-foot tall is a tough thing to do in this situation, not just because of the fact that their root system's not going to be widely spread, but also because when you're planting a tree that tall, you need one of a couple different devices to do it: a tree spade, another tree handling device that you would have to mobilize down the hill and into the wetland to actually successfully plant the trees. 15 footers are not something that you plant by hand. You typically see at nurseries 5 to 6 foot tall trees being about as tall as they'll sell you to plant by hand. The other thing that's more challenging with older, more developed trees is that they have been in the nursery environment for a few years. They get regular watering, and they tend to accommodate to that. They're not as likely to survive because they're not going to be on that same watering regime. And the other thing that I've seen happen is that when they're grown in a ball, you tend to get root circling, which is that the roots kind of coil around inside whatever container they're in, and it becomes difficult to get them to spread out. Older trees are really tougher to transplant. And I think on this particular site, it's not prudent to put such large trees in there. And I think given that we have good sprouting going on, there's a good basis to expect that the existing stumps will sprout and provide a replacement for the trees that are more likely to succeed than large transplanted trees. The owner has also contacted a management company, Phragmites management company, and proposes to treat the Phragmites. I believe he included their proposal. It's the Pond and Lake Connection. They've done this work on several sites. I'm acquainted with them. They want to control it for 3 years. And I think that's a more effective way of controlling the Phragmites rather than trying to shade it out. Phragmites is tough to get rid of. I don't think you'll ever completely get rid of it because it's on the neighboring properties. But if it's treated for 3 years and they propose seeding in other vegetation, and they propose one method, which I recommend, and I think the commission should consider endorsing, which is just spot treatment of the Phragmites, cutting it and spot treating it, coming back and controlling it for 3 years, and getting other wetland vegetation growing in place, as well as the red maples growing over top. I think that's a much more likely successful way of dealing with Phragmites and of getting good red maple trees to grow on the site. That's the basis of my request on behalf of the client, and I'd be happy to answer any questions from the commission.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How many stumps are there out there that have viable sprouts on them now?
Just the same number as was going to be planted, 8.
8 stumps?
Yeah, the 8 maple trees the 8 was a replacement of the ones that had been cut, of 8 red maple trees that have been cut, and they all have sprouts on them.
Okay. And I don't think it was stipulated that the 8 trees to come in would be planted actually in the wetland, but more on the wetland boundary, since it's the southern side of the wetland line, and where you'd be sort of on that upland wetland interface. We wouldn't have those deep organic soil. Do you think that's a more favorable location for planting trees?
I think that it's more likely to support them to keep them from toppling. I would still expect mortality planting that size tree in that location.
Mm-hmm. Do you think a 10 or 12 foot tree might be a little bit more reasonable?
Really, two things. 10 or 12 still pretty big. I usually go with something that's 5 or 6 feet or less, just because the transport and the planting can be tough on larger trees. Red maples grow pretty fast. I think planting in that area, I think any kind of tree planting in this type of situation, a wetland restoration, you're usually better off with a shorter tree, something that's 5 or 6 feet or under.
Okay. I would consider modifying the previous proposal to include 8 5 to 6 foot red maples planted on the wetland upland boundary. And I like the Phragmites management control plan. I think that's excellent. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we could get maybe some annual reports on the result of the Phragmites control and the survivorship of the planted maples.
I think that the annual reports are already stipulated. I'll just ask Aaron to check that. I believe that they are.
I did pull up the amended cease and correct order. So the first was, under supervision of a qualified professional, the property owner shall implement the mitigation planting plan as detailed by Robert Russo, and that the planting shall be installed no later than June 30th. The second was the property owner shall install 8 additional shade trees 15 feet tall in the area of the clearing. The wetland scientist shall recommend native species best suited for the area, and these trees shall be installed no later than June 30th. The third was that the applicant shall have a wetland scientist monitor the health and viability of the plantings for a minimum of 3 years from the date of installation. Annual reports shall be submitted to the agency's agent, and upon completion of the monitoring program, a minimum of 80% survival rate shall be maintained, and that all ENS controls remain in place. So
I think that's good.
In line with a potential modification of that condition number 2, it could be, I guess, Martin, as you suggested, a smaller size tree, and then the inclusion of the Phragmite removal program that was proposed, and to have that included in the reporting. Unless somebody else has, clearly this is a group effort. That was just a suggestion as far as Martin's recommendation.
Is there a way when you're doing the spot treatment of Phragmites to make sure that it's not, I'm assuming it's an herbicide, wouldn't impact any of the shrubs or saplings adjacent to the Phragmites?
Yes, and that's why I recommend that in particular, it is a spot treating of the Phragmites as opposed to a broadcast spray over the area. And the company that Mr. Boudelier has contacted has very good experience in that and a good understanding of which vegetation they're trying to get rid of.
And that is detailed in the Phragmites report. It's targeted handheld application. Of the treatment.
I guess I would also add that the planting plan, Aaron, are you able to bring up a copy of the planting plan that was approved?
Yes, I can actually. Let's see.
We did aim to, just to address Commissioner Brogie's questions further, establish plantings along that upland wetland interface. So I think the original planting plan does show a decent amount of vegetation along that line.
Oops, too close, sorry.
So between the silt fence and the wetland line, we're already calling out a number of plantings with the goal of populating an area that's currently just got low herbaceous and woody vegetation with a a decent number of shrubs, of wetland shrubs. There's witch hazel called out there. A couple of other shrubs that tend to grow in and around the edge of the wetlands. So, we do already have that called out. And the red maple plantings were added, as I understand it. And I apologize, I was not at that meeting, but my understanding was that they were added to be in the wetland itself and assisting and aiding the Phragmites.
You can see these are noted of the maples, and these are the ones that are
Those are the most recently cut ones. There
Yeah.
are some other stumps out there that are sprouting
see.
red maple as well.
Right, there are some in the upland here.
Hmm.
I don't think all of these are.
All of those are stumps. Hmm.
I don't know if they're all red maples.
No, they're
but
not. They're not.
Yeah, I think likely probably just these closest. And these, within the wetland, we're calling out the viburnum and the winterberry holly and the high bush blueberry.
Hmm. Right. And in the buffer, some more viburnum, some spice bush, and some witch hazel.
Right, and the Phragmite removal program does talk about overseeding with a wetland mix.
Right. With the wetland seed mix.
And that
It's a good measure. The idea is to beat back the Phragmites and give other vegetation a chance to grow in there.
I'm going to ask this question, Bob. I've never heard the term before tonight, and it was used twice. What is wind throw?
So it happens especially to trees that are growing in wetlands, particularly where there are organic soils, where you just have a windstorm, and because their roots are so shallow, they're prone to being blown over by the wind.
Okay, that makes sense if I break it down. Okay, I thought it was one word. Okay.
And that includes just the uprooted base, right?
Right.
So that remains a portion of that can be rooted. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, typically half of the tree roots are up in the air and the other half are still sticking down into the ground.
So our condition, the directive says in the area of the clearing. So it didn't specify within the wetland or the upland, just in the area of clearing. So maybe some further clarification from the agency as far as where you prefer to see the trees. I know that there was no, that the actual location of the shrubs be field determined by you, Bob, I think.
Yes.
Out there, and I don't know, this doesn't show existing trees that have not been cut. So it's a little harder to determine where those open areas are. For us to.
That's correct. For instance, as you're looking at this drawing, on the left-hand side of the property, near where it says now formerly Gail M. Murphy, in that area of the wetland and the upland, there are still a number of mature trees existing, shrubs in that area. And that's one reason why it's important to go out and pick the spots carefully. You want to put the trees in areas, especially where they get plenty of sunlight and can grow. And then some of the shrubs are more shade tolerant, some are less so. So it's important to be selective about where they go.
The commission have any other comments or questions with the modification? Since
Nope.
I'd like to thank Bob for the well thought out and descriptive plan.
Is
So-
there feedback? Yeah, as far as what the agency is thinking, we heard from Martin, but as far as size of trees or replacing with a smaller tree or eliminating that, the request is to eliminate the plantings altogether. And just allow the resprouted trees. So I guess we need a little direction on that.
Yeah, was it Kia who was very anti-plantings, or was it across the board? There were others.
Aaron, did you mean the option was not to do even the shrubs that Bob proposed, or you're talking just the
No,
maple?
that's not a request.
Yeah.
The shrubs are remaining. The request from the applicant or the property owners specifically to eliminate the 8 15-foot tall shade trees.
Correct.
And to utilize the Phragmite remediation program
Mhm.
in its place, basically.
Yeah,
And
I suggest that we modify from 15-foot trees to 6 to 8-foot trees to be planted on the wetland upland boundary. I don't feel that there are enough fallen stumps and sprouts to really provide the shade that we're looking for that was lost from those tree removals. And I think that the 8 additional smaller trees would help augment some shading in that area.
So are they not wanting the 15-footers because of price? I mean, they're going to get taller, correct?
That's certainly an aspect of it, Commissioner Budrow. That they're very costly trees, and that paired with the idea that mortality is pretty common among trees that size. Yes.
Okay, so one more time, Aaron, how many of those 15-footers were proposed? 8?
8 were, well, they weren't proposed at all by the applicant.
Oh,
They
okay,
were,
how about
they
we-
were, that was put on as an addition to the corrective action
Okay. How about we
by the
reduce it to-
agency.
Let's reduce it to 4.
Or 15-footers?
Yeah, 4 15-footers, and then they'll grow much faster than those little 7-footers. And they'll get their
I just
canopy.
like to, I'm sorry,
That's okay.
when you're set. I just don't think 15-foot tall trees are a good idea.
But
Yeah, I hear
what-
Bob's point that
If you've
they,
ever seen them planted, I mean, you only do 15-foot tall trees with a tree spade or another planting device because they're that big. You can't hand plant them. And handling those trees, if you bump them, if you knock branches off, you're increasing the likelihood of mortality. And planting a 15-foot tall tree in an area where it doesn't have a root mass that can really hang onto the soil means there's a good chance it will blow down. I think shorter trees would be much better than keeping some tall trees at all.
yeah, and that slope is difficult to get equipment down.
It is.
Well, and you're right, they grow quickly.
Yeah, if you remember the image that was up, photograph 2 in the report, that's a 2 to 3 year old set of stump sprouts from a red maple, and they're taller than the Phragmites. And the Phragmites is about 10 feet tall.
Well, how long did it take for that sprout to get that
About 3 years. But remember, the sprouts grow faster than a nursery tree. The sprouts have a root system of a whole tree that was there to feed them. The nursery tree's root system is going to take a year or 2 to really get going.
Okay, so back to Martin's recommendation, just go 8 8-footers. that'll be good for the wetlands through years down the road.
I think they'd be out of the wetlands, right? They'd be on the fringe line.
Yeah. It's the southern side, so I think they'll cast shade in the direction we need it.
And I think
Yeah,
Bob
so
was
the-
saying 5 to 6 or 5 to 7 foot. I don't know if that extra foot makes a difference to go to 8,
Yeah.
but
So the modification would be, Aaron, 8, 5 to 7 foot trees at the kind of that buffer between the upland and the wetlands, and then a Phragmite plan. That would be the
correct.
modification.
Yep, and include the status of the Phragmite removal plan in the annual reporting.
Perfect.
And so just to clarify, the section or the language that we have originally, the 15-foot tall trees in the area of the clearing, do you want to specify now that that is actually on the fringe of the wetland line? Or do you just want to leave it to Bob's discretion as far as where those would be most beneficial in that, within that clearing area?
I have faith in Bob's opinions out there.
So do I.
So do I.
Hey, your mic works.
I called in with my phone. I don't know why I didn't think about it before. So I
Okay,
tried to
I'd like-
fix it, then I lost everything, but go ahead.
Then I'd like to make a motion that the agency approves the modification as discussed
Modified.
tonight.
Yes.
Second,
Thanks, Lee. All in favor?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 4-0. Aaron, thank you, Bob, for the
Thank you.
description.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
All right, we now have an administrative approval on 31 Birch Lane. Aaron, would you describe it?
Yeah, very simple. This was a staff level approval, replacement in kind, 8 by 14 foot storage shed on gravel pad. Easy peasy. So no further discussion. It was just a building in need of replacement.
Then I have
In
no
the
issues
upland.
with that one.
Thank you, Aaron.
Welcome. I
Okay,
saved you
we
one.
have 3 sets of minutes. 3 sets of minutes that have trickled down to June due to lack of reading. Has everyone caught up to speed on these sets of minutes? I was not
They
here
all look
for
good to
April
me.
3rd. But I did see one error in just, I'm not a typo guy, but there was one typo on the April 3rd meeting minutes on page 6 at the top. You'll see the word Guilford is spelt wrong one time. Other than that, they looked good as typographically.
I move we approve the April 3rd meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. There's 3 of you voting, all in favor?
Aye.
And 3 people are
Aye.
allowed to vote on something like minutes, so we're good. Okay, the next set of minutes was a site walk. Nope, May 1st, my bad. I do have one thing to point out, and that was the vote on this Neck Road house. It said the motion was unanimously approved, and I did. Hold on a minute. It says as amended. I just wanted to note, I did not vote to approve the house and the pool on Neck Road, if that's the one that number 4 is. Yeah, so I'll just put it that way. Number 4, it says the motion was unanimously approved, and I did not vote for it.
Okay.
That was
Noted.
for the property we just talked about. Okay. So anything else on May 1st, everyone?
I can't vote. I wasn't there.
Okay.
I move we approve April 1st meeting minutes.
I'll second. All in favor? Anna with a yes, that's 3-0. And lastly, minutes for the site walk on April 15th. That was at this Neck Road property. I saw nothing, they're a little sparse, but I saw nothing wrong with these minutes.
They're supposed to be sparse. We didn't talk about anything.
I agree. I agree.
We just looked with our eyes.
Heard a lot of jibber jabber and we looked with our eyes.
I wasn't there, so I can't vote.
I don't think
I'll
I
make
was
a
there
I
motion.
either.
I was there. I move we approve May
We
13th.
might need to table. We need
Okay,
to, yeah.
I meeting minutes
Wait, so
for
I
May
don't- Anna
13th.
wasn't there?
No,
Okay, then we'll table these minutes to
The 10th.
July 17th, July 10th, July 10th.
Yes.
Okay. So we're gonna move on to remarks. I just want to say thank you to Erin for all of her hard work and thank you to the commissioners for being here tonight.
Nice job, Joe.
Thanks for leading,
Nice
so well,
job.
Joe. You did it.
Great, Joe. I like your style, Joe. I like your style.
I try
come
to be
fix my
laid back.
computer.
Yeah, thanks for getting your audio to work, Lee.
All
Okay,
righty.
gang, we'll poll everybody for the site walk.
Okay.
Until then, be well.
Thank you, guys.
Take care.
Nice
Bye.
job.
Bye.
Good night.